Welcome to this full council meeting of Burnley Borough Council on the 16th of December 2020. His Worshipful the Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Wajid Khan, is chairman of the meeting. All councillors are present with the exception of Councillor Chowdhury and Councillor Johnston. Council officers present are Mick Cartledge, Chief Executive, Lukman Patel, Chief Operating Officer, Catherine Wardby, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, Howard Hamilton Smith, Head of Finance and Property, Democracy Officers Melda Grady, Alison McEwen and Claudia Wilcock. Mark Hammond is streaming the meeting. We are also joined tonight by public speaker Claire Hills. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Claudia, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for that. Welcome, everybody, to this council meeting on the 16th of December today. Let's move on to item 1 on the agenda, a minute's silence in remembrance of former councillors. Can we please have a minute's silence to remember former councillors of the borough, Gary Frayling, Jane Cunningham and Alf Duffield, who have all recently passed away. Thank you. Would any member want to say anything at this moment of time? Anybody? Councillor Townsend first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a few words regarding former councillor Frayling, who passed away recently. I'm not going to say I was the closest acquaintance that Gary had, but what I can very much say, he was very much a friend and a colleague. And whenever we met, we got on like a house on fire. He loved sharing a joke and a story. And I bumped into him many times in Wetherspoons after a council meeting, and very often it might have been a very bruising council meeting for myself, but Gary was there with his friends and we shared a few stories. And after I'd done that, I went home in a far better frame of mind than I had when I'd entered the building. He was a really sound, solid, and really good bloke to sit down with and have a chat. He was a quiet man, but he seemed that way to many. But let me say that he was not one for grandstanding or sharing or wanting the limelight. But when he did say something, and he did very often to me, it was important. And if he ever came on the telephone to me, I knew very much that it had to be listened to. He had his community at heart of Bank Hall, which he served for many years, and he delivered for them. He gave this council and this community great service, and it's right that we recognise that this evening. God bless former Councillor Frayling. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. I know other councillors want to briefly come in as well. Councillor Leanne Pate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also a long-term friend of Gary's, but I don't think Councillor Townsend could have summed that up any better. I'd really like to say a few words about my lovely friend Jean. She was a real one-off, was Jean, and she was Labour through and through. And, you know, I think we're probably maybe unlikely friends, but we hit it off. She liked everybody to think she was tough as old boots, but really she was a big softie, and she had a real heart of gold, and she was our Jean to me, but she was Auntie Jean to my kids. And she'd bring them little toys. Every time she went to McDonald's for a lunch, once a week, she'd bring them the little toys and they'd love them. I've got 1,000 stories I could tell about Jean, and every one will end with you having a little laugh at the end. She was wonderful, and I'm really going to miss her crazy texts that I couldn't understand. If you've ever had one from her, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure Anne can tell you exactly what she was like when she used to drive you over a speed bump. You were nearly through the roof in your car. If you took a lift off her, you only did it the once. But we're all going to miss her. You know, the two of them, they're going to leave a big hole in our local Labour team. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Cosima Townley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just give a very short tribute to both Jean and Gary. I was obviously not of their party, but they served with me for many years, and I counted them as colleagues, and good colleagues at that. They will indeed be greatly missed by everybody within this council chamber, but more especially by the communities that they served for a great many years each. Formidable, dedicated, and certainly they had their fair share of steely determination, but they were also approachable and humorous, and I very much enjoyed their company. Brief though it may have been, but especially I knew Jean a bit more, and I think I can honestly back up everything that my fellow councillors have said. God rest them, and my thoughts and prayers are with their families at this moment.
Thank you, Councillor Townley. Can I bring in Councillor Lubna Khan, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's much the same sentiment, really. When I joined Labour, Gary Frayling, he took me under his wing. He took me around Bank Hall and he introduced me to everybody. And when I think about actually my starting in politics, these are the people I think about, Gary and Jean. Jean was like a mum to me. And I think she was like a mum to many people in this party, actually. When we heard about Gary, Mark said something which still resonates with me now. He said, I'm sure it was Mark, he said, truly one of life's good guys about Gary. And that's how I feel. He truly was one of life's good guys, but also you always had a friend in Gary. You know, he was the guy who was always there for you. He was always a good friend. I will miss Gary so much. I think it's only fitting that we pay tribute to them tonight, and God rest their souls. And obviously my thoughts and prayers are with the families, but also you know, this is much the theme of this year. You know, everyone's lost so many people that they love. Everybody in this council chamber will know people who have gone this year, and it's been a tough year. So my thoughts and prayers with all the families out there who are missing people, especially around this time of year, around Christmas. When it can be difficult anyway, and in the current situation and the climate that we've got, it is difficult. So just to basically let everybody know out there that if you're feeling like this, you're not alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lubna, for your heartfelt message. Councillor Harbour, I believe you knew former Councillor Alf Duffield pretty well. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To be honest with you, Mr. Mayor, I didn't know him that well, but I did come across him. I think he'd left the council basically a year or two before I joined. What I do know about Alf, though, and perhaps Gordon Burtis will remember him, amongst others, Tony Martin, but Alf always came across to me as a lovely man, a lovely gentleman. And I just wanted to make sure that tonight, that this council and councillors acknowledge the service what Alf gave to the people of Burnley, and I just wanted his family and friends to know that we hadn't forgotten him. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Beautifully said, Councillor Harbour.
Councillor Mayor, could I come in, please?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Royal. Go ahead.
Obviously, I'd like to talk about Jean. I first met Jean when we became councillors, and then we became friends. And I liked Jean because she was straightforward and you knew where you stood with Jean, and that's what I liked about her. She was extremely hardworking, a borough councillor and a parish councillor, and she worked tirelessly for the residents of this borough, and she will be sadly missed. And all I can say is that I can just picture her now up above, organising everybody, organising a fundraising event, and God will certainly know that Jean Cunningham has arrived. God bless her.
God bless her. Thank you very much. Wonderful tributes to Councillor Gary Frayling, Councillors Jean
Mr.
Cunningham and...
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
I have
Mr. Mayor.
sent an RTS.
Sorry, I've just seen your RTS. Sorry, Councillor Burwood, so go ahead.
Yes, as Councillor Harbour just said, I think I'm probably the only member that's been on the council with all these three. Maybe John Harbour was on for a short time. And Alf Duffield used to live just down the road from me on Manchester Road. And as John said, he was a gentleman, and I have many a happy hour sat on Alf Duffield's wall of his very nice, neat terraced house on Manchester Road, chewing over the politics of Burnley Council. He was Labour through and through, but he was one of the good Labour members. He had the town at heart, and you could sit there and talk to him without falling out with him, and he didn't fall out with me. And it was always a pleasure to sit down and have a chat with Alf on Manchester Road in summer when we were putting leaflets out, and he was always kind enough to take our leaflet. Don't know what he did with it after, but he was always kind enough to take it and not insult you. And he had a lovely, his wife was absolutely charming as well. And it's a sad day to hear of the demise of all three of them, but in particular Alf. He must be quite a number of years, I think, old, but he was a gentleman, was Alf, an absolute total gentleman.
Well, thank you very much. That completes our tribute.
Mr. Mayor, can I
yeah.
say something?
Yes, sorry. Councillor Thatcher, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that both Jean and Gary were taken before the time, and we all regret that. I think with Alf Duffield, as Gordon has just said, it's more a celebration of Alf's life, in as much as he actually reached 100 years.
Did he do? Did he?
He did, 100 years. And I first came across Alf as a young bowler in the local cricket league, whereas Alf was the umpire. In fact, the umpires were always the enemy, of course, but you couldn't make an enemy of Alf. He was such a lovely fella, and he had. But he did have in later life. I don't know when it actually occurred, but he had a metal leg. He always walked with a limp, and in spite of this, he was, like I say, he was well loved in the local leagues. I once smashed the ball. I wasn't known for batting, but I smashed the ball back down the field, hurtling towards Alf. And we were all thinking, oh, good grief, it's going to break his leg, when the ball hit him and reverberated to long on. He wouldn't give me a 4 for it either, to my regret to this day. But Alf was a lovely fella, and as I say, it's a celebration of Alf's life because he actually made the 100 years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very welcome, Councillor Thatcher, and thank you for all them wonderful tributes. They were all outstanding servants of this borough. We will now move on to item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. So I believe there's quite a few declarations of interest. So I'm going to bring in Lukman Patel just to talk us through the declarations of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Mayor's pointed out, there are a lot of declarations of interest. So I'm just going to go through the ones which have been disclosed, and if there are any which haven't been disclosed, or if I've made a mistake on any of them, please do let Mr. Mayor and myself know so we can record them for the purposes of the meeting. So item number 6 to begin with, Councillors Anwar and Councillors Kennedy have declared a prejudicial other interest. That means that they will not participate in the debate and will leave the room, or should I say will be placed in the virtual lobby that we have. Item 7A, the following councillors have declared an other interest which is non-prejudicial. That's Councillors Leanne Pate, Councillor Cosmo Stanley, Councillor Margaret Lishman, Councillor B. Foster. They will stay in the room. They will still vote. I just also have to clarify that although officers are not required to declare interests, I'm a trustee at Burnley Football Club in the community who are also mentioned within that report, and I declare another interest just for the interest of transparency. On items 7B and 7C, Councillor Andy Fewings has said that he is currently liaising with legal officers as to whether or not he has a pecuniary interest in those items in relation to Lower St James's Street. Just for transparency, he will be leaving the room, but hopefully that matter can be clarified in the in the new year. In relation to items 7C, Councillors Baker and Councillor B. Foster have declared an other prejudicial interest. Once again, they will not be voting on the matter and they will be leaving the room. Just to clarify, Councillor Fewings will also be placed on the virtual lobby for item 7B and 7C. And in relation to item 9, Councillor Fewings has stated that he potentially once again has a pecuniary interest, which is currently being looked into. However, as it's a strategic progress report, Councillor Fewings does not need to leave the room. And finally, it's been brought to my attention just before the meeting that in relation to the fees and charges report, there's a number of elected members who have a garden waste bin. So a request was made by Councillor Fewings to grant a general dispensation to all members because it would potentially impede the usual transaction of business, which I think is fair, and the dispensation to all members who have a garden waste bin can continue to participate in that report or that item when it's being discussed. If any members have any other interest, please can they let Mr. Mayor know, or if I've made a mistake in relation to anybody's interest.
Any member? Okay. Luqman, thank you very much for your comprehensive declarations there.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Townley.
Mr. Mayor, as far as the council tax is concerned, are we speaking about the precepts from the parishes?
Luqman?
Sorry, just in relation to the fees and charges report, I don't think there is anything on the precepts and or council tax today. This was just on garden waste, unless I'm mistaken. I can't see there being any reference to precept here.
Page 55.
What page?
Sorry, just bear with me.
Let's check that. What page was that, Councillor Townley?
Page 55. I know it's only a heading, but I just wanted to check because there are a number of us who are parish councillors.
And it's always good to check, Councillor Townley. Yes.
Well, there's a general dispensation in relation to council tax anyway. So, and I think it's not mentioned there to do anything in particular in relation to council tax. So I don't think that should be a problem for the purposes of this meeting.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that publicly known. Thank you.
Thank you. Noted, Councillor Townley. Okay, thank you for your diligence there, Councillor Luqman. Sorry. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meetings of the council, 29th of October 2020 and the 4th of November 2020. I will move those minutes. Madam Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
My pleasure, Mr. Mayor.
If there's no dissent, I will take those minutes as approved. So if you want to dissent now, please raise your voice. Otherwise, please stay quiet. Okay. The minutes are approved. Item 4 on the agenda, Mayor's communications. It gives me great pleasure to announce that the council has received further national recognition for its support for armed forces veterans. I'm now going to hand over briefly to Councillors Townley and Pate, who have been working with officers towards this award over the past year. Councillor Townley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shortly, colleagues and officers, this is a very proud moment. Not only were we one of the first councils to receive our Bronze Award, but we are most definitely one of the first who have moved so quickly to achieve the second. The council should be immensely proud of this accolade because it is not just as recognition of our veterans, it is actually as an employer of veterans and also for the support that we generally give to anyone who is a member of the armed forces and in our employment. Therefore, we can be very proud that we have actually undertaken this and got this award, which I'm afraid I can only show you in paper form, which arrived with us today, and we can't see this actually given to us in person by
Sorry, Councillor Townley, your video is off.
Oh. Oh. Can you see me now? Can you? Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor
Oh.
Townley, we can.
Sorry, I must have pressed a button. So I hope that this will have to do in these straitened times, but it is my pleasure to hand this to the present Armed Forces champion, Councillor Leanne Pate, who has taken up the baton and run with it. And together, we hope that we will be actually receiving the Gold Award as one of the first in the country. Councillor Pate.
Well passed over. You're on mute, Councillor Payne.
I'm there now. Yes. I went to Ozzy's screen. Lovely. So yes, I'm here. Yeah, certificate is brilliant. It means a lot more than just a bit of paper to us, because the amount of effort that has had to go into this to get us where we are. I remember that the first council meeting that Councillor Townley did as exec member, she was literally receiving that gold, the bronze one. Now we're receiving the silver one, and very soon we should be receiving our gold one. It sets a precedence for all those other organisations out there that that would like to be more ex-forces friendly. We don't like to call them veterans because people think of old chaps with lots of medals, but essentially, if you've been in the armed forces and you are looking for work, this town needs to be the place where you can come and find good work and with employers that know how to value a veteran. We recognise that there are good skills there, and as an organisation, ourselves as the council, we have a number of TA and ex-forces members of staff, and we really appreciate them, and we're very glad that they do this work and that we don't have to, but we also appreciate the skills that they learn whilst they are away doing their training. So I'd like to, Cosy, can you pass this back?
Where's Cosima? Councillor.
Mayor, can I pass that to you?
I can't see you yet, Councillor Townley. But before you pass it, I can't see you yet. Okay, I can see you now. You're passing over to me. Okay, 1 second. There we are. That was a difficult one.
Positively acrobatic.
There you go. Look at that. That is what we call magic. That is what we are so proud of. Thank you so much. This is assigned by the Ministry of Defence, Secretary of State for Defence, as well as Chief of the Defence Staff, Nick Carter. So there we are. We will have that very proudly displayed within our wonderful town hall. That was a job and a half collecting that. Well, thank you very much. I managed to kind of put it in a frame whilst you passed it over to me as well. Hollywood will come, Councillor Pate and Councillor Townley. Look, we're all aware of the outstanding bravery and commitment shown by all members of our armed services, past and present, and the depth of gratitude we owe every one of them. On behalf of Burnley Council, I'm very pleased to officially receive this silver award under the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, run by the Ministry of Defence. This is in addition, as previously mentioned, to the Bronze Award that we already have and hold. The honour recognises the Council's commitment to supporting and working with veterans to help them when they move from the armed forces to civilian life. For example, by helping them with housing or finding training and employment, as well as signposting them to other organisations where they can access further advice and support. We will continue our work with partners to support ex-forces, men and women. The next stop is the Gold Award. So thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 5 on the agenda, public questions. A request to speak has been received from Claire Hales. I'm delighted for Claire Hales to join us this evening for this meeting. Ms. Hales, you have 5 minutes to address the council.
Hiya, I don't need 5 minutes. I don't really have much to say. I saw on Padiham Community Talk that there were some issues with some land at Grove Lane. Residents were saying that it was badly covered in fly tipping and they were going to try and find the owner and rah-de-rah-de-rah. So I just thought I'm kind of asking whether the ward councillors really can make sure that any residents get some help with that, because I'm not in a position to help them at the moment. Also, I wanted to mention 6 to 8 Whitefield Street in Hapton, which is the former Clegg's shop. This time last year, I asked for it to be looked at because it's an eyesore. There are various derelict buildings in Hapton Village Centre, which are just being left to get increasingly derelict. I believe at that point that Clegg's wasn't eligible for any kind of action, but it is an entire 12 months down the line. At that point, I was reassured by the ward councillor that action was being taken by the owner to turn it into flats, which I don't think looks like a very good solution for that building myself anyway. I don't think that would be good news in the centre of the village, to be honest. But if people could have a look at that, if someone could take action regarding the condition of Clegg's shop and the Bridge pub, they were both looked at this time last year, but still nothing's happened, and I would like to see the council taking some kind of action to pursue the people who are leaving these buildings derelict in the centre of the village. And my last one is the trees on Cambridge Drive. I was disappointed to see that the trees had been removed from Padiham Town Centre, and having looked at the ones going up Cambridge Drive, it's kind of, they're on the cusp of where people are going to go, oh, they need taking out. Whereas actually they're at a point where if they were pollarded and actually looked after, they could be kept and they could be saved. You know, there were lots of trees planted in that era in Burnley, and are we just going to cut them all down, or are we going to look after them so that they can actually continue to exist there? That's all I have to say.
That's very nice. That's very nice of you. Thank you for coming on and thank you for speaking to the council meeting. I love your Christmas tree, by the way. Anyway, to your answers, can we? I'm looking at probably 3 main areas. Can I bring in Councillor Anwar Harbour and Leanne Pate? But I'll just bring you in to address your specific area, please, if you don't mind. So I'll start with Councillor Anwar. Please, can you respond to your part of Claire Hales's points?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, can I just thank Claire for bringing this to our attention? She mentions that it has been brought to the attention of the ward councillors previously, but it's the first time I've heard of this particular incident. So what I would suggest is if officers aren't aware of it, what I will do is chase that up with officers and ensure that the matter that you're talking about is looked into. So, but thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just answer that? I want to, if I did say...
Claire, you can only come in once. I'm sorry about that. But so hopefully if you can pick this up with Councillor Anwar and then you can clarify, he'll be able to answer that particular point. I'm pretty much convinced he'll come back to you on that. Councillor Harbour, can you pick up the points that Claire raised as well from within your portfolio, Councillor Harbour?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy to look at what's happening with that building on Whitefield Street in Hapton. I think last time I was involved with this, and this is quite a while ago now, I'm sure Miss Hales will understand I haven't been in post for 18 months, but the last time we looked at it, the property was up for sale. Obviously, nothing's come about with that, so I will make sure that the council again contact the owners, and we'll discuss with the owners what their plans are for the building, what the future plans are, more importantly. We'll also make sure that when we talk to the owners, that if there's any remedial work needs doing on that building, and I suspect there is, then we will remind the owners of their responsibility to do that. Hopefully, the owners will engage with us. I appreciate that it has been a problem in the village for a while, but sometimes these problems aren't that easy to solve. But I do promise, Mr. Mayor, that our officers will be looking at it, and hopefully I'll have some news about it in the new year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harbour. So we'll have Councillor Leanne Pate. Can you please respond to your part of your portfolio, which Claire Hales raised, please?
Thank you. In relation to trees, I will need to get a proper update on those and where we are, and I will speak to Claire personally regarding those once I have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for addressing the meeting. So some of your questions you need to they'll be picked up later, and you've got some pledges there for members to come back to you, and officers will guide you through that process. Thank you for coming and addressing this meeting, Claire. Really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll get some communication back from the respected executive members and officers in due course. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful Christmas, Claire. Thanks again for coming.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
That's our Lord Councillor and Carrington for that area. We're going to speak, but I had an
Yeah, you can. I'm going to come to any member if you want to say something. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Oscar.
Right, we'll go back to the trees on Cambridge Drive.
Yes.
The Cambridge Drive trees have been inspected by the highways, and because the path is being pushed up in such a way that tarmac's coming up in air, it is not satisfactory to me. Because it's the roots of the trees, they've been in that long, they're pushing up tarmac up. The highways are looking into what we can do. Nobody wants the trees cutting down, but yet we have to be making safe. So I've left it with highways to see what they're going to come back with. So it is under investigation. Regarding the trees outside the bank, what used to be, as we're doing the Padiham Town Centre up, I spoke to the chief engineer. The trees had to come out, and I put a notice on the Padiham page. But these trees had to come out because what they were doing, they were breaking the drainage pipes up underneath at roots of tree. So they had to come out with no option but to take them out. And they had a lot of uneven path work. And having in mind we're spending, well, it's been Padihams having a fortune spent on it. It's a case of having to do what we had to do for best. So we didn't want to take the trees out, but I spoke to the chief engineer, the trees had to come out and be removed. Going back to the building in Acton, the lady who owns the building is not in best of health. Now, I've been in communication with Claire Ells, like we say, and they are looking into things. It's a daughter what she hasn't got involved much because of her mum not being in best of health. But working behind the scenes, this issue isn't being ignored and it is being looked after, but it's a private issue and it's a private family concern, and we don't want to make anything public.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. I'm sure Claire needs to be contacting you. You need to contact, you can communicate with each other in detail and depth. I've just got Councillor Thatchell who wants to come in, last member on this. Councillor Thatchell, do you want to come in?
Sorry, I'll just give Claire some information on the Grove Lane.
Yes, please.
What we used to call the Grove Lane Wilderness, to be honest. I can well understand. It's been a long saga. The land is owned by Huntroyd Estates, who are known for not being a great landlord in Padiham. I had a meeting with Huntroyd Estates, must be 5 or 6 years ago now, and we finally made an agreement with them that we would pay for half of the clear up from the WAF fund, and they would pay for half the clear up from their firm's finances, and we'd sort out that land once and for all. In fairness, through Simon Goff and through their good officers, we cleared the land and it was done quite well. Obviously, growth on land like that is a seasonal thing. And come the following year, when it started to come back again, when I got in touch with Huntroyd, I found that they were actually going to put a planning application in for that land, both sides of what we call Spy Cop, which, to be honest, having spoken to the residents in the area, they saw that as a blessing because it would sort of take once and for all. The truth of that is that they've messed about. That's all I can say. They've cleared it a couple of times as though they're going to put stuff on it. At the moment, if you go down there, they seem to have cleared out the right-hand side of Spy Cop, which is the smaller of the two areas. As far as I'm aware, that planning application still holds water, and therefore that can be activated at any time. But just picking up what Claire said, I'll revisit that and find out where they are with that planning application. I mean, quite obviously, they're not going to trim things if they're going to bulldoze all over it. They're known for bulldozing. But I'll have a look at Claire and get back to you.
Councillor Harbour, do you want to come back in very quickly?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire, for coming in this evening and got some response there from executive members and I presume board councillors as well. And I appreciate you coming in and talking to and addressing the council. So have a wonderful Christmas. Take care. Stay safe. Bye bye. Thanks, Claire. Bye. Okay, that was Claire Hales contributing and speaking to the council chamber. Can I now move on to item 6 on the agenda? And I believe this is where some declarations of interest start, I think. So I'm sure the back office staff will be putting you into the relevant spaces in relation to your declarations, depending on the nature of them.
It is, so that's Councillor Anwar and Councillor Kennedy. If you could just bear with us, Mr. Mayor.
Shall I wait for you to kindly and politely remove them? I think when they've been removed. Can I continue, Alison?
Just hold on a minute, Mr. Mayor. We're just dealing with Councillor Kennedy. Yeah, it looks like they're both in the line. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel awful for removing them, but this is how we're going to do it, unfortunately. Now, item. Let me know when you're ready, Chris, and I can move on.
They're both in the lobby now, Mr. Mayor. Okay to proceed.
Can you give them a cup of tea whilst we're waiting? Item 6 on the agenda: motions to the council. Item 6: cancellation of GCSEs and A levels in 2021. Can I point out to members that once the motion has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. I know you're all very succinct and precise, so I'm sure you're conscious of time. Members may then only speak again on an amendment. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please move the motion regarding the cancellation of GCSEs and A levels in 2021 as set out on the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that all members have had an opportunity to read and to think about this motion. I'm sure you've all seen the government's recent announcements about GCSEs and A levels. First, there will be another 3 weeks in the summer before the exams will be taken. And secondly, that the subject areas to be covered in the exams will be notified in advance. We also know that both Wales and Scotland have decided to cancel their equivalent examinations in 2021. Some members of this council are governors at primary and at secondary schools in our borough, and we all know of children who will be facing exams in the next year. We are all too well aware that our children in most of the northwest of England, including here in Burnley and Padiham, have had their education disrupted since the first lockdown in March and continue to do so. That has been to a much greater extent than in areas in the Midlands and throughout the south. They've had some problems and they are beginning to see those problems now, but nothing like those that we've faced here. There are children here who've now completely disengaged from the school system, and there are some who, because of necessary shielding, continue to learn remotely. The children who suffer the most are those who are already the most disadvantaged. Teachers, heads and other school staff have managed the demands of the pandemic with dedication, and for many of them to the point of exhaustion. They are rewarded with a pay freeze, which will actually reduce their family income. The same, of course, is true of this council's workers who have emptied the bins, kept vital services going, delivered parcels and answered the needs of local people. Boris Johnson talks airily about levelling up the disadvantaged north with the better off south. If that means imposing the same examination system across the country, then that's not my idea of levelling up. Earlier this year, it took to the very last minute for the government to decide to cancel the exams. That led to another system which created new problems and then led to further U-turns. And that still applied to the whole country, regardless of the need and the disruption that we have seen. If Mr Johnson truly wants to level up for the benefit of our children in the North West, he must find an alternative to the top-down exams and a coherent assessment framework which recognises the achievements of our schools and their consistent improvement in recent years. This has to be done soon to give some clarity and certainty to both pupils and teachers well in advance of next year's exam season. We have brought this motion to Council to urge the Council and all members to campaign now for that change. I hope that Conservative colleagues among us will listen carefully to what I've said and that they will join their colleagues in other councils and in Parliament who've supported these fair demands which we make on behalf of Burnley and of Northern children. I was angry last week when I heard the announcement of mass testing for COVID in London schools. I know that many of our classes have been disrupted and quarantined with all the impact that has on families. No one suggested mass testing for our schools. It all adds to the pressure on our schools and their staff. Please support this motion to try and ensure that our children are not even more disadvantaged. Let our voice be heard on behalf of our future citizens. This pandemic must not ruin their lives. Cancel the exams. I beg to move, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lishman. Councillor Anne Kelly, would you second the motion, please?
Mr Mayor, happy to second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kelly. Any member, please? Oh, we have got some members. So the first member.
Councillor Townley.
Yeah, I've said that, Chris. Thanks for that. I've got a list here. Councillor Townley first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whilst I recognise and applaud the feeling of my Lib Dem colleagues, I do have to say that I thought this was a motion about schools, not pay rises or testing. Unfortunately, you seem to bring a lot of other things in. As far as the schools and exams are concerned, and that is what I will address, discussions have taken place between the heads in Lancashire, and our educational authority has taken on board their feelings, their sentiments, and how they are going to deal with this. It seems that they would rather the exams went ahead with various things taken into account, such as extra time, and they, in the meantime, and also a variation of the syllabus that will be put forward. We know that this is also being pushed in Parliament by our MP. So I think we need to also recognise that he has the best interests of children within not just Burnley, but also the county. I think one thing we need to understand, that people thrive on getting back to normal. To continue to say that that COVID will disrupt our lives is true, but we need to overcome that. So whilst I will not be supporting this, I do understand the sentiment behind it, but I also believe that at some point we need to believe that we can carry on as normal as we can and support our children in any way to get them back to what it was before, perhaps even better than it was before, but certainly where they do not any longer have to always put it down to the fact that we are in this pandemic, which we know we have in many cases overcome, especially as far as the schools are concerned. I am very concerned that we seem to be saying that our schools are unable to deliver what they are there to do, which is a very full curriculum. Now, they seem quite happy to be doing that, and I think that by passing this motion, we are not supporting the hard work of all those teaching staff who have worked so hard throughout and continue to risk not only their lives but also their families by carrying on as normal as they can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townley. Councillor Townsend, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Labour Group support the aims of this motion, and we will be voting for it tonight. Protecting the long-term interests of the young people directly affected by the pandemic is absolutely paramount. we can't underestimate this. Life chances are at stake here. This isn't just talking about 1 year. We're talking about the life chances of this cohort of young people, and it will directly impact their life chances, obviously through the rest of their life. Just going back to what Councillor Townley said in terms of trust, I want to put on record, and I think Councillor Lishman would support this as well, that we do trust our schools. What we don't trust is the government after the shambles that we saw last year. So we need to get that into context. We cannot afford the shambles like we had last year on the exam results. It's still uppermost in everybody's mind, and the people who were affected by it will be affected for many years to come in terms of trying to justify what happened last year. So we need to provide certainty and solidarity in fighting for our young people's life chances. And there's no greater cause than that. And this motion pretty much captures it. I'd like to say well done on the drafting of the motion. And in terms of next year's exams, we fully support it and we will be voting for it tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Townsend, Councillor Shah Hussain, please, can you come in?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a couple of things. I'll be supporting this motion. I feel that this motion is about fairness and equality across the UK. You've got countries, you've got students in Wales and Scotland where exams, the GCSEs and the A-levels are cancelled. And unfortunately, in England, the department, the education secretary is saying that it will take place. So I think it's not about, as Councillor Townley has said, it's not about delivery, but to me, it's about fairness. Fairness that students across the United Kingdom are given the equal chance to sit exams or not to sit exams, or to be tested or assessed equally. And I think this is what this motion is about. It's about bringing, it's about ensuring the system is fair and that we do not have a two-tier qualification this year. We don't have a qualification whereby students in England are able to sit the exam. And I think when you read what the Education Secretary has said, he said some of these students will get to know beforehand some of the subjects that will, you know, that might come up on the exam. So I mean, that's like the nitty-gritty of the exams in terms of how it's done. But in Wales, they will be assessed on what the teachers think. So I think what we're doing here is, if exams do take place in England, there will be a two-tier qualification that was assessed differently, and I think we need to prevent that happening. And the reason I support that is I want to see uniformity across the UK, where students are assessed equally and that their qualification is of equal value. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Swiftly moving on to Councillor Graham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally support this motion, and I think that every right-minded person should support it. I am very concerned about what happens in schools in this country. My grandson, my eldest grandson, has just reached secondary level, and he's got friends in that school who've been self-isolated on several occasions, not just once.
Yeah.
They can't always work from home. There are different issues in different families. Their IT issues are strong. There's a school in Oldham or Rochdale where they ordered something like 230 laptops to help those children who didn't have access to laptops at home, and the government awarded them about 40 out of 230 odd. I'm also, I mean, the other thing that concerns me is the mental health of these children. They have been put under tremendous pressure this last year. They've lost the links with their schools. They've lost the friendships that they used to have. They've lost the whole sort of ethos of going to school and enjoying the learning process. And then to have on top of that the pressure that they've got to face exams, which are, for a lot of children are very stressful at the end of the school year, when they know that they will be ill prepared for it. Never mind helping them by telling them what subjects will be covered. That is not going to assist their mental health. We're going to have an awful lot of children who are going to suffer tremendous stress by keeping the exams in place next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham, for that. Can I quickly bring in other colleagues? I've got Councillor Pate next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to speak up in support of this because I do feel that we're all speaking about exams as a process, as if it's a perfect process for both children in compulsory and A levels. It's not a perfect process. It's a very stressful system and has become in the last few years more exam on the day driven rather than casework and coursework driven. If a young person is having a bad day, doesn't feel very well, and it's a particular point in young teenagers' lives where they can have those days, the rest of their lives can be affected by poor results. It's absolutely crushing to watch teenagers that don't get into university because they didn't get that A or didn't get that B. Yet when they get to university, how are they assessed at university? These are the people that are going to be, you know, our doctors, our teachers, our lawyers. They're all assessed by their own lecturers who are peer assessed by their peers. So it's a less rigid process once they get to that higher system. And I just believe that we're at an opportunity now where it isn't perfect, but our teachers are skilled. They are to be trusted. There are frameworks in place already, such as the MBQ assessment framework, which could be used and built on to essentially build back better the assessment process for those young people at a very, very stressful period in their lives when they are doing such a lower level, very strict exams at the moment. They don't need to be doing that strict exam. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to bring something good out of something that's been very, very difficult for a lot of people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, you're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
You're muted.
By the old mute button. I've got a number of colleagues want to come in and they are important to hear people, but can we be as succinct and precise as possible? Can I bring in Councillor Thatchell first?
I didn't have...
Sorry,
no,
Councillor Kelly, apologise.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do understand Councillor Townley's point about wanting normality. Of course we want normality, but our schools, our teachers, our students have not had normality for 9 months. They're unlikely to have normality for at least the next 3 to 6 months. That's a whole year of missed or disrupted education. Of course, I agree with Councillor Graham about the mental health issues. There are some massive mental health issues with students at the moment. There's also a massive inequality, not just among the more deprived children, but across the whole board, across the whole college. As you all know, I'm very involved in education. I spoke to a head teacher of a college recently, and she said she hasn't had a COVID-free weekend since last July. She spends the weekends getting telephone calls from members of staff saying, I can't come, my husband, one of my children have been tested positive, we're in isolation. That means the whole of the timetable has to be altered, different teachers have to be drafted in. She's got to start ringing up students, she's got to start ringing their parents and saying they've got to come into isolation. Everybody in their bubble has to go into isolation. And this happens every single day, that people are coming, they're going, some children are missing weeks. Some of the schools I know in Burnley, they're having a week in and a week out. Some children get involved in the Zoom lessons, some unfortunately don't. It's not always because the parents are not bothered or the children aren't interested. If they've got 2 or 3 children in the family, they don't always have access to 3 computers at once. The exams are the final touch, the final thing, that having to cope with an exam that's going to affect the rest of your life and your future when you've not had a proper education for a year, despite all that the staff are doing. And I would support the staff, obviously, every minute for what they've done and what they've been through. The staff at Unity, where I'm a governor, didn't have an Easter holiday. They worked right through. They didn't have a May bank holiday. They worked right through. They spent the summer holidays getting the school COVID safe, planning, getting ready, sorting out exam results. Our staff visited every single student who'd done a GCSE and took their results to them and talked them through and what their next steps would be. That was the summer holiday. They came back in September to face a week here, a week there, children in, children out. It is absolutely not fair that children should be forced to take exams on this unequal basis. Therefore, I will absolutely be supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The Mayor again,
Mr.
sorry.
Mr. Mayor.
So I apologise. I've got Councillor Newhouse, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've worked in the school for the last year or so. I've had the pleasure of being in there and seeing how this has affected the schools like others, and I'll not go on about all the things that they've done and et cetera, because it is true and they have worked very, very hard. I want to note Councillor Townley's points about the money side of it that's been put into the motion. It is a bit, just no need to be in there. I don't know why it's there, but I do see the mentality that was originally for the motion. And I think for that, we do need to vote for it. And just rejecting the motion, not sending the point now, at least they'll get the point, they can go and have a look, and they can deal with it in one way or another. If it is keeping them out of the exams is the right thing to do, then at least now we've sent our bit to say, let's look at it. We've done our bit for our residents to say, we've sent our note. Hopefully they will look at that for us. And I think that's the right thing to do. I don't like the bits about the money like Councillor Tanney, but I think the right thing to do is vote for this motion tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Newhouse. Can I just bring in Councillor Fewings, please?
Thank you, Matt. Just very quickly, I just want to say that I do support this motion. Thank you for the proposer and seconder for bringing it. I also wanted to very quickly say I'm confused about the idea that this isn't supporting both students and teachers. I think that that's a false dichotomy. I think it can absolutely be supporting both, and I think it does. And I'd like to ask for a named vote. Thank you.
Okay. What's the process, please, Alison, for named vote? Can we just remind the viewers at home and the council members what the process is?
Yep, so we need a quarter of those members present this evening to support the call for a named vote. Can I suggest that members raise their hands clearly in front of them if they do support that? We need 11, and once if we get to 11, then we don't need to go any further than that. So members, could you raise your hand, please, if you're in support? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I've got 12 without going through all the members, so I think we can say that that is supported.
Would you like me to do the names vote now, Chair?
No, I just want to bring in Councillor before Councillor Ishmael before we go back to the vote. Is there anything, as the mover of the motion, is there anything quickly you want to come back in, or shall we just go to the vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder if the Conservative government changed their mind yet again, will our Conservative group change their minds as well? And I apologise for raising the spectre of our teachers who've obviously been working so hard and has been so ably illustrated by Councillor Kelly. I apologise for raising it, but I think that's part of the problem, and it shouldn't be ignored, and I think it's right to do so. And the very fact that our children haven't been getting tested regularly, and the second the virus raises its head in the London area, they are starting to be tested regularly, just shows the disparity between the two areas and why we shouldn't be going through an examination system at this time. I beg to move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lishman. Now shall we move to the vote, please?
Councillor Mayor.
No,
No, we've kind of come back. We've gone back to the original motion proposer. So we're going to move progress.
Mr. Mayor.
No, sorry, Councillor Hosker. We will now move
Well, it's
to
a
the.
put to do then when you're leader at group, Mr. Mayor, and you can't speak.
No,
No,
sorry, Councillor Hosker. I apologise, but we'll have to move progress now. Make progress. We should now go to the vote. I apologise for that. Thank you. Let's move to the electronic vote.
it'll be a named vote. I will call out everyone's name, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor Anwar, are you for the motion or against?
He's out of the room.
Oh, yes, he's got.
Councillor Ann was in the lobby, Chair.
Sorry, yes, of course he is. Sorry. Councillor Baker, are you for the motion or against? Or abstain?
Motion.
For the motion. Councillor Birtwistle.
For.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brindle.
Councillor Brindle, you're on mute.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. My vote is for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
For.
Councillor Cant.
For.
Councillor Comis.
Abstain.
Councillor Emo.
Abstain.
Councillor Ferrier.
Thank you.
Councillor Fewings.
For.
Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Peter Gill.
Abstain.
Councillor Graham.
Definitely for.
Councillor Hall. Councillor Harbour.
For.
Councillor Hosker.
Because I didn't get a chance to have a say, I'm going to abstain.
Councillor Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ishtiaq.
Councillor Ishtiaq, you're on mute. Think.
Councillor Ishtiaq.
Sorry, for.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Kennedy isn't in, is she?
In
Councillor
the lobby,
Khan.
Chair.
Councillor Arif Khan.
For.
Councillor Lubna Khan.
For.
Councillor Shabana Khan.
For.
Councillor Wajid Khan.
Forward, please.
Councillor Gordon Lishman.
For.
And Margaret Lishman.
For.
Councillor Lone.
For.
Councillor McCann.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Mahana.
For.
Councillor Mottershead.
For.
Councillor Newhouse.
For.
Councillor Pate.
For.
Councillor Payne. Emma Payne.
For.
Councillor Mark Payne.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
Councillor David Roper.
You're muted, David, please.
Abstain.
Councillor Royal.
For.
Councillor Sumner.
For, please.
Councillor Tatchell.
For.
Councillor Townley.
Abstain.
Councillor Townsend.
For.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Okay, thank you very much, Imelda, for that. That motion has carried. Let's move progress.
Mr. Mayor, can we just wait for the two councillors to come back into
Yes,
the...
I'm going to say, I'm going to wait. Thank you. Sorry about that wait there, Councillor Kennedy. It was a pretty long debate, and then.
Mr.
They
Mayor.
are back in the meeting, Mr. Mayor. They can
Mr.
just
Mayor,
confirm
point
they're
of
here.
order.
Sorry, so what was that point of order from who, Councillor Harbour?
It is, Mr. Mayor, yes. Can we just make clear, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Oscar just said there that he didn't get a chance to speak. Well, the fact is, he did get the chance. We had an half-hour debate on this, and he waited until the mover of the motion was actually summing it up. So all you've done is follow council procedure, and unfortunately, Councillor Oscar wasn't aware of that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Just to Councillor Hosker, I understand.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we have to make progress in these meetings, otherwise we'll be here till.
Mr. Mayor.
But one second. Before, let me finish, Councillor Hosker. If you let me finish. If you want to come in on a particular education element, I'm sure there'll be different portfolios in the strategic reports where you can come in and raise them points. Now, have you got a point of order or clarification, or shall we come and make progress, Councillor Hosker?
Let me just say this to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I did try to come through. Nobody saw me. I did try to come through. Let's be speaking up. Now, Councillor may or he may not have seen that.
Yeah, but
maybe
let's move.
Grass is a bit steamed up. Maybe it must have happened.
Let's not listen. I hope we can. Let's not make them kind of comments. It's discourteous, and especially this time of year. Let's be more kind and more genuinely honest to people. I do regret what you just said there. I hope you can reflect on them words, Councillor Hosker. But I'll say this to you. I'll just say this to you again, Councillor Hosker. You will get a chance. I'm sure you can bring in a relevant strategic report portfolio and make your pertinent points you want to make. But now we will move to progress. Item 7 on the agenda. Again, there'll be some declarations of interest. Items for decision by the council. Item 7 on the agenda. Can I point out to members that items for decision by the council are treated as motions? Once a proposal has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. Members may then only speak again on any amendment. Can I just ask people who are hopefully getting ready to 7A, item 7A on the agenda, COVID-19 Community Recovery Plan. Can the declarations of interest please be put in the lobby or wherever they need to be put?
Mr. Mayor, on this item, nobody's leaving.
That's fine. So let's move progress to consider the approval of Council's COVID-19 Community Recovery Plan. Councillor Mark Townsend, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was recognised a few months ago, probably around the middle of the year, that the council needed a plan to basically recover from the pandemic that the country was going through. And there was cross-party support right across this council in terms of having a plan. As it turned out, we've produced 2 plans, and that's all the good for the extensive work that's been put into this. I'd like to thank and put on record those thanks to the previous administration, who did quite a bit of the spade work on this, a lot of the spade work up to the end of September, and a lot of that work obviously underpins the plan that is in front of you today. The one that we're now covering is about social and community life, really, within our borough, rebuilding and enhancing it following the worst pandemic in 300 years. And it complements what was agreed at November Council, which was Burnley's New Economy, a strategy for recovery and growth. So the 2 plans really go together to make a comprehensive plan for the borough of how we're going to move forward as we leave behind this nightmare of a pandemic and hopefully move forward to better times in the not too distant future now. There have been some extremely dark days this year, but dark days you can learn from. And I think this council, this borough, has learned a lot about itself from some of the challenges that it's faced over these last 9 months. Partnerships and communication, key to success of any organisation and in any response to any crisis facing in any walk of life, but certainly essential during a pandemic. The art of compromise for a common aim. What we found is that there's so many doing so much good right across this borough. And with focus and partnership, the pandemic has taught us that when all are brought together, the output can be greater than the sum of the individual parts. And I think that's key in terms of all the organisations, all the stakeholders who have helped us through this pandemic. And it's how we build on that as we go forward. Our resilience has been exceptional, and we need to take that forward. You know, many people within this borough, many people within this council will probably surprise themselves at how resilient they are when the crisis struck and how they've stepped up to the plate to help others. But we're not yet out of the response phase. We're not out of the woods yet. The vaccine is here. People are being injected, which is absolutely fantastic news. But there's still many months ahead of us that, you know, where we're going to face some dark days again going forward. But we have to be ready for when the light comes right upon us, and we need to move forward quickly. And this plan shows that we are ready to move forward to rebuild our social and community well-being. And with the other plan that we agreed in November, our economic prospects going forward. I know this has been through a rigorous review. It's been through presentations at scrutiny, and it's had a long debate at scrutiny. And I welcome what was suggested at scrutiny, where in 6 months' time we review this plan to make sure that we've delivered upon the commitments that we're making to the people of our borough to move us forward out of the pandemic. So I move the reports, Mr. Mayor, and I hope all council can get behind this, and we now get to the implementation phase as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Can I ask Councillor Maggie Lishman, will you please second the report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm very pleased to second this plan. As Councillor Townsend said, it fits well together with the economic recovery plan, and it will help our town through what will be undoubtedly difficult times ahead. I listened very carefully at last week's executive when this plan was discussed, as I did at scrutiny before, and note what Councillor Townsend said about not putting everything in the plan all at one go. But I would make a plea that the administration do raise the profile regarding the issue of domestic abuse, which has risen greatly through this pandemic. We pride ourselves in this town as being a white ribbon town against domestic abuse. Lockdown and closed pubs have increased the likelihood of domestic abuse, as well as seeing an increase in the numbers who are affected. It deserves a mention in the plan, an acknowledgement of the challenges that we face in Burnley and Padiham, along with the debt, the unemployment and the ill health. The plan is a start of the recovery plan. I know we're still within the pandemic, but I think we need to be starting to plan now, and that I think this plan allows us to do. We don't have to wait till the pandemic is over before we start to do, but we need to carry on the amazing work that the Hub and others have been doing. There have been lessons learned about how various organisations in this town, both statutory and charitable, can work together more effectively to help our residents. Making accessing help simple will be critical in getting through the next few years. It will also give us an opportunity to perfect a model of partnership working, which will stand us in good stead in the years to come. I think if nothing else, the pandemic and the Hub have allowed that partnership working to really bed in, and we need to build upon this in this recovery plan. I think the plan provides the framework for this to happen, and I am delighted to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lishman. Any member? Councillor Gordon.
Gordon Lishman, Chair.
Yeah, I see that. Councillor Gordon Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay.
I was accused, not unreasonably, after my contribution to the Scrutiny Committee on this subject, of failing to spread much sunshine. And I think what I'm going to say is going to enhance that reputation, although that's not my normal approach to life. There is general agreement that the pandemic is going to be followed by a significant economic recession. The estimates from bodies like the Office of Budget Responsibility, the Office of National Statistics, Treasury are that our country as a whole will see levels of unemployment between 7.5 and 11% over the course of the next year. That is between 1 and 2 million people. It is clear that some geographical areas of the country will suffer much worse than others. In that sense, it's more like the 1980s recession. The areas which will suffer worst are the areas which are most dependent on manufacturing. The people who will suffer most are younger people, mothers with younger children, and particularly older people who will leave the workforce in their 50s, not get back into the labour force, and whose comparative poverty in later life will reduce the opportunities for employment for others in producing goods and services. That has now been accelerated by the appalling likelihood of a no-deal Brexit. And if you look at the estimates, and the Resolution Foundation has done some of these, the Social Market Foundation has, about the combined impact of a no-deal Brexit on manufacturing and on key parts of the population. It really is very clear that Burnley, along with a few other parts of the world, particularly West Cheshire because of the aerospace, particularly around Preston, is likely to face some of the greatest challenges. And this is at a time when we're going through quite a major economic transition in any case. The decline in retail is something that has been accelerated by the pandemic, but was happening anyway. We therefore need to be ready for the implications of recession and not assume that everything is going to return to normality as soon as vaccinations are in place. And that really does mean that this council, neighbouring councils, the county, are going to have to address very significant issues which are going to affect our communities. A lot of that is going to require investment and support from government, both national and local, and we should be ready to play our part in that. But vaccination doesn't mean normal. Vaccination means recession.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your points there. And I've got one more request from Councillor, a couple of requests now. Councillor Liam-Pate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just to give thanks to everybody that's had an input into this, because it's a really robust plan, but at the same time allows an awful lot of flexibility around what support is available. You can't go into a recovery without some kind of plan. And as Councillor Maggie Lishman was saying, you know, there needs to be things that are added into this as things develop, because we thought that we were all going to be, you know, on the way out of this come Christmas, when we were all sat there back in March, didn't we? And here we are today. We could be a long way from entering the recovery stages, but we have to be ready for it when we do. As soon as we know we can start getting people back out and starting to try and improve our situation, then we need to be ready and we need to hit the ground running with it. But if anybody out there listening to this hasn't actually read this, look at the names of the partners in here. The partnership work that's gone into this is immense. The officer work that's gone in is immense. And it's a testament to the people of Burnley and those that work here, that just goes to show how everybody can pull together in a time of need. And I'm really grateful for all the work that's gone into it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pate. Hopefully I can have a council meeting in the actual chamber before the end of the mayoralty, but let's see. Moving on to Councillor Ferrier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo Paul, what Councillor Pate said. Yes, it's an excellent report. You can tell a lot of work's gone into that. It's that's a great job from the officers there. And I agree with Councillor Lishman that predominantly after this, those affected will be more the younger people. But I would like to highlight a couple of the things available, which I no doubt we support take advantage of, I'm guessing. Like there's also the £2 billion Kickstart programme being initiated. It's 32 million going to the National Career Service. And of course there's the Opportunity Guarantee, which is going to guarantee every young person have access to off of work-based training. Now, obviously we have things like apprenticeship and work-based training before, but I say particularly when we start our recovery plan in the post-COVID world, when hopefully the vaccine will help us get on the way of that, these have become particularly critical. And I see this report as not only, it's not the Bible of it, it is the foundation of it. This will grow and develop over time and will prove to be the bedrock of our recovery in Burnley, because this town has a lot to offer young people in the end. It's just a matter of the council responsibility, with working together with county and national government, that we give our young people the best opportunity they can in this terrible situation we're unfortunately faced with. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferrier. So Councillor Hussein's cancelled his right to speak, so we'll finish that now. Members, if there's no dissent on this item, I will take it that members approve the recommendations. So if anybody's got a dissent, please let me know now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, the item is carried. Moving on to item 7B on the agenda, Capital Monitoring Report 2020 to 2021, Quarter 2 to 30th of September 2020. Councillor Sue Graham, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe I have.
1 second. Would somebody want to come in there? Sorry, 1 second. Was that you, Chris?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just put councillor Fewings into the lobby.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second, Councillor Graham. Let me know when it's confirmed. And we can allow Councillor Graham to continue once you're ready, Chris.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, councillor Fewings is now in the lobby.
Councillor Graham, the floor is yours. Councillor Graham.
Good to go. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything to add to this report. It's a monitoring report. It's as it says, and it has been through scrutiny as well as the executive. No questions arose at scrutiny. So I move the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councillor Townsend, can you please second the report?
I still second, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Any member? Councillor Sen, did you want to come in? Because you said you want to speak on the next item, Councillor Sen, am I right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to note, Mr. Mayor, with regards to council tax and business rates income collection fund, page 55, I just want to note small businesses are lifeblood of Burnley. There are a lot of small businesses who employ people locally, and I feel both the government and I've not been forthcoming in terms of supporting small businesses. Fair enough, there has been some business grants, but I think within the coming next 12 to 18 months, small businesses going to find it very difficult in terms of collection rates for business rates. I just hope the council take a sympathetic view with regards to this. I know on the report it's saying they've got this collection rate spread over 2 to 3 years. I'm not sure in terms of recovery, what small businesses, how long will it take for small businesses to recover? But I think there has to be a bit more emphasis on supporting small businesses, and they're our lifeblood of the local economy, and they employ hell of a lot of people in the borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sen, thank you for your contribution. There's no other speaker listed, so nobody wants to come in now. So, here we are. Okay, no, here we are.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Graham.
Can I just...
Sorry, Councillor Graham. I think Councillor Shaws is on the wrong item. I just wanted to clarify that. So you may want to answer that, but can it be answered at that item, Mr. Mayor, with your permission?
Yeah, can you answer that question on the next item, relevant item, or do you want to take it now, Councillor Graham?
I've just moved item 7B. So can we go to the vote on that, and then I'll come on to item 7C.
Okay, that's fine. If you can come back then. Councillor Ferrier has just cancelled his right to speak, so I think he means next item as well. So let's just say if there's no dissent on the item, I will take it that members approve the recommendations. So anybody, if you got any dissent, say it now. Otherwise, we can move this item. 3, 2, 1. The item is carried. Item 7C. There's some declarations of interest as well, Chris. Can you please kindly allocate them into the nice lobby, please?
I will do, Mr. Mayor. Just confirm when that's done.
Can I just clarify what happens here? I've never been put into the lobby before, so
you're going to be
do I just ignore people?
You just
do everything for me. I need to touch nothing.
Everything will be done for you, Fee. You just stay there.
Yeah, they're going to
Okay,
sort it out. You're going to be put into a room. They're going to offer you some biscuits and tea and coffee, and just enjoy the entertainment and hospitality in that room.
Adds a whole new meaning to the word lobbying.
Whilst we're waiting, can I remind councillors, please, after the YouTube transmission is finished, can you please stay behind for a few minutes? I'll request to all councillors. It's just a request.
Through you, Chair, just to confirm, all 3 members are now in the lobby.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So, Councillor Sue Graham, will you please move the report?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Sorry, just I should have said, I forgot to say item 7C on the agenda, which is Revenue Monitoring Report 2021, Q2, September, 30th of September 2020. I forgot to say that at the start. So, go ahead, Councillor Graham, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As with the previous item, this is a monitoring report. It's been through all the process. It's been to scrutiny. I don't believe there was anything mentioned at scrutiny. I think members supported the movement of funds into a COVID reserve, which is part of the report. Does Councillor Hussain want to get back to me with his question again?
I think you summarised his question pretty well. If you just want to briefly add anything else, if not, you can answer that question.
Well, I can.
But we need to first move that report, though. Sorry, we need to second that report.
I wish to move the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. No problem. Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Townsend, can you please second the report before bringing other members in?
I second the report, Mr. Mayor, and I will just comment on Councillor Hussain's comments. He's absolutely right in terms of small businesses and support for small businesses. They are the lifeblood for many, many jobs in this borough. Obviously, the grants that we're actually handing out, the vast majority of them are government grants. Now, you know, the argument is always being made to government, and quite rightly, that we actually need more money to support our businesses, because some of the grants that are being handed out, although welcome, any money is better than none, are insufficient to keep many of those businesses alive. But basically, what we are doing is administrating government grants. We do have some minor funds, discretionary funds, that we are allowed to allocate, but they are in the minority when you look at the whole scale of the grant system. But any support, any lobbying that can be done of government to say that, look, we need more funds to keep our businesses alive, I fully support, and we continually take those arguments to government to support our business. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Can I bring in any member? I've got his Councillor Lishman first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to echo Councillor Graham in welcoming this report and note the currently improved position. When you consider where we were last quarter, I think this illustrates perfectly the volatility of the current situation. I also welcome the formation of the COVID Reserve Fund. I'm also waiting with interest, and as usual, the government says something's coming on the 14th of December, and we're still waiting. But I also wait with trepidation to see what settlement we get from central government for councils and what the levelling up element will be for the north of England. I think it's important to note that this council, like those up and down the country, have shown just how vital we are during this pandemic, and hopefully that will be reflected in the settlement that we get. I note your laughter, and I probably agree with you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lishman. Let me move on to Councillor Ferrier now.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I thought someone before me then. Yeah, I was just say that the support given to businesses, as obviously everyone in this council knows, has been unprecedented in history. I mean, since I think it was March or April this year, the amount of money spent on supporting local businesses has been absolutely immense on central government, and that's sport is continuing, and I do agree that more work needs to be done. Businesses will need that continued support as this pandemic drags on, unfortunately. I will point out though that the discretionary grant scheme that the council are control of, correct me if I'm wrong by all means, but I believe it had a cap of £500 for things. I was hoping in time that the council may review that, as for certain people that might be not quite high enough or well good enough in a way. But like I said, we need to support our small businesses as we can.
Thank you.
Also, treading the fine line of not peddling. It's a fine line. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very welcome, Councillor Ferrier. Councillor Townley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say to my colleagues, good things come to those that wait, and that we certainly will be platooning our MP to push our cause. Please be assured that we will be backing our colleagues in this every step of the way and pushing perhaps even harder than they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very succinct, to the point. Councillor Graham, a final speak on this.
Yes, can I, in answer to Councillor Lishman, the settlement is apparently due tomorrow. We couldn't get the government to adjust their timing so that we have the news to give you today. So we'll wait with bated breath to see what it is tomorrow. I'll give you some information as well that I compiled for the strategic report, which is at the end of the agenda. But people have been asking about support for businesses. So far, we've given out 916 grants to small businesses. That totals £1,482,565. And some of that, a very small amount of that, is for the additional discretionary grant that we are able to give to smaller businesses or individuals who aren't covered by the local restriction support grant. So we've processed an awful lot of grants. I mean, all credit to the officers who've dealt with this, because those grants have been going out at some speed. And that's an awful lot of businesses that have been supported. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all.
You're very welcome.
I think I moved the report, didn't I?
Yeah, it's been seconded and moved and seconded. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Graham. We now go to the electronic poll, which is the first of the evening. We missed the electronic polls, haven't we? So Alison and the team, can we? You know the drill about the electronic poll. There you are.
Okay, members, that should be up on your screens now.
If you've got any problems, please let us know.
Okay, councillors Mehana, oh no, you've started yours. Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Roper, are you having some issues?
Councillor Roper, are you okay? Can we check on Councillor Roper?
He's gone off screen, Chair, and he's on mute.
Okay.
Councillor Kennedy is starting.
Don't forget, we've got a couple of councillors who are not here. They're in the lobby.
Yeah, they're not. Councillor Roper is still off screen. Chair, I suggest that we treat this as if he had left the chamber for a short period.
I'm good with that. If he's not there, he's not there. Is his camera on or off?
It's on and he's not on screen, Chair.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see that that was unanimously carried.
Thank you very much for that. That's clear. So the item is carried. Let's move progress. item 7D on the agenda, Treasury
Mr. Mayor,
Management.
if we can just allow the members to come back in.
Oh,
if
sorry,
that's
yes,
okay.
I do apologise. Yes, that's right. We'll wait for them. Just let me know when they're ready, when they're back in. Welcome.
The Mayor, they should have rejoined the meeting now. If councillors Fewings, Baker and Foster could just confirm that they're in the meeting.
Confirmed.
Yeah, Councillor Foster, you there?
Confirmed, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good.
Councillor Baker.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, actually, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 7D, the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report. Councillor Sue Graham, busy for you tonight. Will you please move the report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the report, and I hope our members enjoyed their tea and biscuits in the lobby.
And the music.
And the music. Oh, was there music too?
No, I'm joking. Could be for the next meeting. We could get that sorted for the lobby. That's fine. Thank you for that, Councillor Graham. Can we have Councillor Townsend please move in that report? Sorry, seconding the report. Seconding it, please.
Second the report, Mr. Mayor.
It's very, very kind of you. I've got a member already wanting to speak. We've got Gordon Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to draw members' attention to page 73 of the report and note the reference in the beginning of section 6 to the MPC feeling optimistic. Various events over the last week have suggested that their optimism is not particularly well founded. The first reason for that is that the assumption now is that the unemployment rate is going to be between 7.5% and 11%, as I mentioned before. That is between 1 and 2 million people unemployed. The reference at a later stage in the report to Brexit uncertainties ahead of the year end creating a drag on recovery are certainly going to be true. I don't think any of us were expecting we would be at the stage where a significant part of Burnley's manufacturing industry is likely to be facing significant tariffs in any attempt to export its product by the end of this year. The other point, of course, is that wider economic assessment said any spikes in virus infections are now likely to be dealt with by localised measures. Well, firstly, that may be true, but they're localised measures which now cover more than half of England and significantly more of the population of both Scotland and Wales. And of course, that's a general assessment about the economy, not an assessment of a local economy which is disproportionately hit by the lockdown measures. And if you look at the areas where we are most at risk, we are at greater risk than most other areas in the country. And I could have made the point under other areas of the finance reports, because of course once a business is gone, it's gone, and so is its business rate income. We're going to be facing problems in Burnley which go a significant way beyond the general national top-down picture, which is pretty gloomy over the next 2 years in any case. And it seems to me that our local treasury management policy needs to be taking much greater account of that variation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lishman. There's no other member wishing to speak, so now we will, if there's no dissent, we will move over to this period. If there's no dissent on the item, I will take it that members approve the recommendations. Anybody want to dissent? I'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay, the item is carried. Thank you very much for that. Item 7E on the agenda, fees and charges. Are there any declarations here, Chris, or can we move on?
There are none, Chair.
Councillor Sue Graham, will you please move the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fees and charges report that comes to us every December quite often causes controversy and also sometimes bad news for members of the community. I'm going to move this report. I just want to highlight a couple of things. It is a difficult year, as Councillor Maggie Lishman pointed out earlier, the volatility of our financial situation. It's been up and down an awful lot this last year, and I think it will continue to be like that. But we've got good management structures in place to deal with that sort of those sort of fluctuations, and also, of course, the monitoring that we've seen earlier does enable us to make adjustments throughout the year. So I'm happy that we're going to announce there are no increases to crematorium and cemetery fees. I think it would have been extremely callous of us as an authority to have introduced any increases in this particular time. No increases to car parking fees. Garden waste, we will be increasing to £35 per annum, which I think is a good deal. But we will be offering an early bird rate of set at the current rate of £30 a year for the first 8 weeks of the year. We're also going to introduce a discount of 50% on bulky waste collections for 3 months from the 1st of January. And this is a trial period. And we're doing that by using the budget for the community skips that was in place earlier. So I'm going to move my report, but I understand that there's an amendment. Okay, I understand that as well. Let's just second this report as per the process, and we'll come to amendments after this. Councillor Liam-Pearce, will you second the report?
I second the report, Mr. Mayor.
So we have an amendment. I think, is it Councillor Townsend?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this is a little unconventional. I want to propose an amendment that we're naming free after 3 car parking. Apologies for it coming in this way by an amendment, but it's took us a little bit of time to work out a scheme that was both practical and affordable, but we wanted to obviously do it at the same time as the fees and charges report. So the essence of what we're proposing is that from 3 p.m. every day, there will be free car parking on council operated pay and display car parks in Burnley Town Centre. It's seen as an initiative really on the back of the recovery plans that we put in place to support our town centre. We see it as benefiting both visitors and businesses in both the day and the nighttime economy, and is providing an incentive to visit our town centre, hopefully increase footfall over what it would be, and hopefully for people to stay longer and spend more time, spend more money within the town centre businesses. It may well also have the effect of smoothing out visitor numbers during the day, because when you look at the statistics, most visitors come in like late morning into early afternoon. If we put free car parking on after 3 o'clock, people may well be tempted to stagger their visits into the town centre and move their visits into different times of the day, therefore expanding the business of the town centre over a greater period of time. We see as timing is key for this. January is traditionally slow, so we don't see this having a major impact really in January, and we really need to wait until there's some consumer confidence returning, and really we could be looking at like a critical mass of vaccinations well underway and people's confidence being rebuilt to go out and about and getting back towards a normal life. So we're suggesting February the 20th as a start date, which is the half-term break for the schools. But in the meantime, we're going to work hard with our town centre partners on a marketing campaign to make sure that everybody's aware of this, that we're open for business in the town centre, and there'll be free car parking after 3 p.m. We obviously want to maximise the impact of this. It is costing £27,000 of scarce council resources at a time when we've already looked at the revenue monitoring report tonight, and we're projecting a £118,000 deficit at the end of the year. But we think this will be money well spent in terms of stimulating the local economy, and I therefore move the free after 3 car parking amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before we move on to the members' issues here in the chat box, can I just have, I believe, is it Councillor Anwar, are you going to second this amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I will second the amendment, and I'd just like to add, I think it's a win-win. I think it's really positive what the amendment is proposing in terms of what it'll hopefully do is help us with our recovery plan, as Councillor Townsend just outlined. And also, after 3 o'clock traditionally for our town centre, it is that time where business starts to tail off. And so those people who are on the school run, picking children up, or those at the end of the day after work want to nip into town, it gives them that opportunity. So hopefully help all of our businesses and support our town centre to recover. So it's a really positive step that's been put forward. And it also rolls off the tongue as well. So free after 3.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just bring in, I'm just looking at the chat box now. We've got the first person we've got here in the chat box is Councillor Cossima Townley. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Slowness of finger. I'm minded to support this amendment. It's yes, a little unconventional, Mark, but heck, what's wrong with that? But I would like a little more information. Thank you for stating the amount of loss to the well, to our bottom line, basically. I mean, I think what everyone needs to remember is that charges are what really forms the basis of our income. And whilst we might believe that we are doing the best in the long run, I seem to remember that this has actually been suggested before. And I just wanted to urge caution, because I'm not entirely sure that we are convinced that this very generous offer by us as the council has actually really ever yielded the results that we have thought. So I'd really like an answer of that, and I was wondering whether, in the light of that, it would be more prudent to suggest that the amendment had a time limit on it, so that this could be assessed as opposed to an open-ended option. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townley. Councillor Fumes, your question's been answered by the officers. Okay. So Andrew Newhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Newhouse. Sorry, apologies.
Thank you. Surprised, unusual, but obviously for it. Anything other than, I guess, free parking would be brilliant. But this is obviously a step in the right direction. If we could move more in the direction of more free parking or more parking available for residents, that would be much better for our town centre as well. You do obviously have to take into account in mind the budget and what that does have an effect on. But if we can be thinking in that direction, I'm happy to vote for those sort of things. If we can balance the budget and do something better for our residents, I do believe in free parking. More free parking is much better. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Commis. Councillor Tom Commis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like Councillor Townley and other councillors, I am inclined to welcome this this motion. I would just like to ask Councillor Townsend, in working out the cost of the scheme, basically what were his workings? Obviously, has he just taken the number of people that come in currently after 3 p.m. and assumed, well, we won't get the revenue from them? Because obviously, if this scheme has its intended effect and people stagger their journeys, so people who are currently coming in before 3 p.m. come in after 3 p.m., you have to take into account that you won't get that revenue as well. So I'm just, my question is really drilling down into the detail of the costings. Is the sum of money he mentioned, I think it was 27,000, based purely on not getting revenue from the existing customers that park after 3 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Commis. We have Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think these are the exact kind of policies I was talking about earlier on in terms of helping small businesses. This will stimulate the growth and people, encouraging people to come into the town centre. So it'll stimulate visitors. I think it'll encourage people to come in the town centre, not just use the shops, but the nighttime economy as well. So I think this is a very good, positive and thing that's come from the Labour group. And I hope that colleagues across the chamber, so to say, do support this scheme, because this scheme will definitely help small businesses. It'll get small business, it'll attract people into the town centre, and that's what we want. We want our town centre to be thriving again, our businesses to stay open and do well. And I think these are the kind of policies that we need to put in place. And I hope colleagues do support this motion, because it needs a cross-party support for it to go through. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So now I shall bring back Councillor Andy Fewings, because you come up with a follow-up after Alison's answer. Councillor Fewings, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, you're not bringing me back. I haven't spoken yet. And I'd also would like to propose an amendment.
Sorry, 1 second, because you asked a question there.
No, I didn't. I made a statement.
I think if you look at you asked a question, my friend. You've said.
I didn't ask you a question. Am I allowed to speak?
One second.
Am I allowed to speak?
No, sorry, Councillor Fewings. Clarification. You brought something on the chat, and an officer's got back to you. So now I'm bringing you back in. That's the technical side of my interpretation. If you accept that, that's fine. If you don't accept that...
No, I don't accept your interpretation. I haven't been afforded an opportunity to speak, and I'd like to. Can I now speak?
I'm giving you the opportunity. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So I would like to propose an adjournment, and I'd also like to speak on the amendment. I want to propose the adjournment so that I can speak to my group. We're both working councillors, and we haven't had an opportunity to discuss this amendment, even though it was circulated a few hours before the meeting in the middle of the working day. And then I would like to be able to, once I've had the opportunity to speak with my group, speak on the amendment.
Well, I understand if it's an adjournment, if you want to move an adjournment, it needs to go to a vote. So if you're moving an adjournment...
It needs to be seconded first, Mr.
I will
Mayor.
second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Officers, any other clarification on this particular process?
It just needs to go to a vote.
Now that it's been moved and seconded, it can go to a vote. If you can just bear with me, I will do.
Chair, just through you, Chair.
Sorry, go ahead.
Councillor Beatrice has requested to speak privately. It won't have come through to you, but he has requested to speak.
Yeah, I thought other people have come back to want to speak, but I think we were giving Councillor Fewings...
we're on this
particular point, so we're going to take Councillor Fewings' adjournment.
Just for clarification, members,
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, for speaking over you, Mr. Mayor, Alison. Just for clarification, we're voting on whether or not we should move to an adjournment. Suggest the adjournment's 15 minutes if everybody's okay with it, if it's carried. So that's what we're voting for.
So if it's carried, if this vote's carried, it's going to be a 15-minute adjournment. So what's the next process, Alison?
Mr. Mayor, I suggest that we first of all ask if there is any dissent, and if there is dissent of the meeting, that we go to the adjournment.
So, has anybody got any dissent against the adjournment? Anybody want there who doesn't want an adjournment?
Mr. Mayor, I'll be voting against any adjournment. So yes, there is.
Let's go to a vote then. Let's go to a vote. Councillor Anwar is going to vote against the dissent.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead. Who's that?
It's Sue Graham.
That's Councillor Graham.
I don't see the need for an adjournment at all.
So, okay, so that's noted. We're going to go to a vote.
It has been moved and seconded, so we do need to vote on it.
We're going to go to a vote. Alison's sorting the vote out now.
Mayor, is this the vote on the adjournment? or-
Adjournment, yes, adjournment. The vote's open now.
Councillor Ishtiak. Oh, yeah, you've started now. You do just need to confirm your vote, Councillor Ishtiak. Okay, so we've had 12 votes for, 29 against, and 2 abstentions.
Okay. So what's that then?
So there won't be an adjournment, Mr. Mayor.
No adjournment then. So let's move on with the meeting. So you said, Councillor Fewings, that if after the adjournment you want to come in and talk about on the amendment. So can you please make your point on the amendment, Councillor Fewings?
Absolutely, thank you. I'm looking forward to the Budget Council when the Labour Group feel there's no need for an adjournment for any amendments that come to the budget. In terms of the notice that we've been given in relation to this, I'm going to take Councillor Townsend at his word that it wasn't deliberate that we've been given hardly any notice in the middle of the working day for this kind of amendment. But what it has done, whether it's deliberate or not, is deprived the opportunity of scrutiny. This is something that I talk about quite a lot in this council. We need to make sure we're running the council properly, with proper due diligence and proper scrutiny, because that's what we're elected to do. And when we had this report at the scrutiny meeting, there was nothing in there about this, whereas the Labour Group had been posting on social media during the summer when they weren't running the council that they planned to do this. So this isn't a new thing. And it's really, really disappointing and regrettable that we're in this situation. So the questions that I would have raised at scrutiny, had we been provided with this very little information, would be, what assurances can you give members that the government won't argue that the £18.5 thousand element of the claim for COVID losses are no longer recoverable as a result of us declaring free parking? What is the projected increase in footfall as a result of this scheme? What evidence do you have to suggest that the lack of footfall in the town has been caused by the parking charges after 3 p.m. rather than a global virus pandemic? What air quality assessments have you considered in bringing forward this policy? How will you assess if the scheme has been successful if there is an increase in footfall or not? i.e., your proposal is to have this from February to May when daylight hours change. How can you be sure that it isn't as a result of daylight hours changing rather than this policy, or an increase in confidence in safety as a result of the vaccine? How will we assess whether this trial has been successful? What alternatives have you considered and discounted? For example, residents have contacted me and said the reason why they can't go to town now is because they're elderly and they are unable to find a public convenience due to COVID. What other examples of increasing footfall were considered and discounted for the same kind of value? And why is it 3 p.m? How many businesses and residents have contacted us? What consultation has come back to suggest that free parking after 3 p.m. is going to increase footfall or improve the economy? What are your projections for the boost to the economy as a result of this trial? Many, many questions. They're the ones that I've had an opportunity to come up with in the middle of this call because I've been given no time to come up with it. There's no opportunity to have scrutiny. I did manage to quickly, just before the call, speak to the officer involved, and I think that Councillor Thomas raised a great question. I had a conversation with him about that, and unfortunately, due to the lack of time, we were unable to give the confidence that these figures are accurate and that the government support will be provided. So yet again, we're faced with a situation where we're being asked to make a decision without any information, without any time to assess it, as a result of the administration amending their own report. You look like a joke, and I really feel for the people of this town that we have to put up with this. Notwithstanding that, on the basis that it is a 3-month trial, and that you are going to do some work to work out how you're going to assess whether this has been effective, and that the average person does think that economic activity would increase if there were free parking, I will be voting for the motion, but I hope that you do some proper assessment and proper running of this council and not just come up with things on the day of the council in the middle of the working day. In future, our town deserves better. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you are muted.
Thank you for that, Councillor Fewings. I've got Councillor Ferrier, Oscar Roper. Was there somebody else, Chris? You said somebody wanted.
Councillor Gordon Burton.
Okay, let's bring in Councillor Ferrier, then Councillor Burton. So Councillor Ferrier, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I do support the general intention of this amendment, but I just have a couple of curious questions, really. It's again, why 3 PM, other than it's being a nice sounding slogan, really, but I can't remember which councillor mentioned it now, I'm afraid. Someone mentioned about someone nipping into town before they pick the kids up, but wouldn't the 1 hour's free on-street parking not cover that? I'm just a bit curious, that's all. But I will urge that since the figures and the idea of footfall is a little dubious, we should have a mechanism at some point, should this thing pass tonight, that the council can review it maybe midway through, and if it's not working, then pull the plug on it before we lose any more money on it. But it's not the intention, but I'm just a bit curious about it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Your curiosity is noted. We've got Councillor Burwison next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a bit of sympathy for Councillor Fewings regarding this being brought up at this council meeting tonight without any prior warning. I have some sympathy for him there. So looking at the situation that's on the table, this amendment, I think we as Lib Dems will support this because we need to attract people into town to get the town going after this dreadful pandemic is over with. And a lot of shops and businesses in the town centre need some help from the council. They've had a bit of help from the government. I have to say it is a bit of help from the government to keep going. And when this is hopefully coming to an end, we need to boost the footfall in the town to help not only the private shops in town, but to help our market hall. Our market hall at the moment is like about 15%, 20% running, and we need to get the people back into town to enjoy our market hall once again and the traders that trade within there. So yes, I think as a group we will support this, but I do have some sympathy for Councillor Fewings, only having it dumped on his lap, as you might say, in the last hour or so. But I can assure the council leader that we will support this tonight and hope that we can get our town centre, the footfall in our town centre and the economy that's provided by our town centre in the town running again after this pandemic hopefully comes to an end. But then we've got the next pandemic, which will be the Brexit, and we'll have to see what we have to do with that afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very welcome, Councillor Burwison. I've got Councillor Alan Oscar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I'll make a couple of points. I'll point out what Mr. Burwison said, being an ex-executive, going on about the market and how this is going to drag custom in and how it's going to pick up. He wants to start with his rents and his rates, but he's battered all these market traders with, because for what they're paying and custom they're getting is shocking. Going back to your car park, I'm all in agreement with it. If it's saving the Burnley people money and it drags people to Burnley, why not? The only thing that does concern me is you're saying from 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if it's fruit week, by the time they've picked the kids up and got down to Burnley, the shops are ready for shutting. That's one concern. Two, what Andy Fewing says makes good sense. It hasn't been to scrutiny. And has there been any surveys done, independent surveys, to show that having free parking after 3 o'clock, is it going to benefit Burnley? It's another concern. But like I say, Mr. Mayor, I'm all for free parking. If I had it my way, don't be free parking, 10 Kerridge people. I go to Accrington for my shopping on a regular basis. On the basis it's free parking. They don't charge you for anything. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, noted, Councillor Hosker, noted. Councillor Roper. Councillor Roper. He's not there. Is he not there? I've got okay.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, we did RTS about before a few people.
Okay. Let me bring Councillor Baker in first, Councillor Hussain. After Councillor Baker, I'll just have a look at the list. Can you please make sure you put in RTS people that want to speak? I've got Councillor Baker there. I'll come back to you.
Can I not speak?
Is that Councillor Roper?
Yeah.
Oh, you're back, my friend. How are you?
Sorry. Yeah, I said I agree with what Councillor Burts covered what I said, but Councillor Fewings' questions could not be quantified very easily. All those points he put cannot be quantified very easily. And I will be supporting the motion. And also, if it saves one business, then is it worth 27,000, whatever much it's going to cost in car parking fees?
Okay, noted. Councillor Baker, you haven't spoken.
No, I'm still waiting, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, that's your next. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing. The 3 o'clock bit is madness. We're trying to get people to come in a time when they don't normally come. The best time for shopping in Burnley has always been early morning. That's when most people come. If we really want to boost the business, we want to get more people when they go shopping early in the morning. When it comes late in the afternoon, they've got kids to look after, teas to get on and things like that. They just won't bother coming. So it'll be a virtual waste of time. If we're going to be brave and bite the bullet, let's try it 1 month at 9 till 10 or 9 till 11 or something like that for a couple of hours. And then the next month try 3 o'clock. Then at least we can determine quantitatively which is the best time to go. Because I don't think it'll make any difference at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I believe Councillor Shah Hussain, you already spoke on this previously. Am I right? Yeah, you've spoken on this item. So, no, you haven't.
Mr. Mayor, others have spoken as well on this issue.
Have you not? Have you spoken on this before? On this item, officers?
I did speak, but the others have spoken as well twice on this issue.
Okay.
I think you can only speak one, and I don't think another person has spoken twice.
No, you're going to be the second one. So I think let's move progress, Councillor Hussain. I'm sure there are other opportunities come in. There are no other speakers on this. Anyone who hasn't spoken before, let's move progress. I need to bring back Councillor Sue Graham. Well, actually, I need to bring back Councillor Mark Townsend as the proposer of the amendment. First, Councillor Townsend, do you want to reply to some of these questions, and we bring Sue Graham at the end?
I will. I'll try and take some of them. I won't have answers for all, but hopefully I can allay some of the concerns, perhaps. Coming to Councillor Townley at the beginning, she mentioned about a similar scheme. I'm certainly not aware that there has been a similar scheme to this in the past. I know that there are other similar schemes like free after 3 that have been tried in other northwest boroughs that are in operation. So we're not totally alone, but we certainly haven't tried anything like this before that I'm aware of. And you mentioned a time limit as well. I should have mentioned in my introductory remarks that this is for a 3-month period. So what we are doing is we're freezing car parking charges for the whole of 20 and 21, but we're having this free after 3 scheme for a 3-month period starting at half term in February. I note Councillor Newhouse's desires for an expansion of free car parking. coming to Councillor Commis and his question about the £27,500. Now, the estimates always have to be on best estimates in terms of what we think something's going to cost, because it all comes down to commuter behaviour as much as anything else as well through this. But things that we have taken into account are, we're not just taking off those that come after 3 now. We are aware that there'll be a switch around of traffic where people who would have come perhaps at 2 o'clock in the afternoon might not come into town until 3:30 now, just to save on the car parking fees. And we've had to take into account that commuter traffic into the town centre and car parking isn't at the levels that it's been at previously. So taking the COVID effect into that as well. But our best estimate for the 3-month period is that it'll cost in the region of £27,000 to the council. I think Councillor Fewings was next. And yeah, I agree with him in terms of this has come late. I did apologise at the beginning and say it was a little unconventional, but I think it's important. And this council needs to be able to react quickly and efficiently as part of a pandemic recovery plan. We talked about that, not kicking the ball into the long grass and taking forever in machinations. Now, I agree that if we could have got a scheme together that was affordable and practical, I would have loved to have put it into the fees and charges report and go through the full cycle, but we weren't there, and hence why it's here today. And I do find it a bit rich from Councillor Fewings to sit there and talk about us throwing things in at the last minute. This is the guy who's turned up at the last 2 full council meetings saying, let's freeze council tax, £120,000 a year, no means of paying for it, and basically we'll put the whole council in hock. If that's the kind of person we're talking about with Councillor Fewings, so I'm not going to take any lessons from him on turning up with things that cost a few pounds on a night or during a day. Councillor Ferrier, I would just say that some of your Tory leaflets over the last few years have all declared that you're great exponents of free car parking for the town centre. You had 18 months in charge or as part of a coalition on this council and didn't bring forward one single proposal, and yet now you want to start criticising proposals that we're bringing forward. Again, a bit rich. I note Councillor Birtwistle and Councillor Roper's supportive comments, and I thank them for that. I also note Councillor Hosker, who prefers Accrington over his own borough to go shopping. Very interesting. But what I would say about the 3 p.m. is that we're talking about 3 months here, and it has got to be treated as a pilot. Now, we're hoping it'll be a success. We want to work in conjunction with our retailers and nighttime economy to make sure that we make a big marketing splash around this and try and attract people into our town centre instead of going elsewhere. And that moves me on to just Councillor Baker's final comments, where I do take on board where the busiest points in the day are now. But part of this is perhaps to try and change some of that behaviour and make the link so that not just the retail sector gets some of the benefit, but some of the early nighttime economy can get some of the benefits as well, in terms of people who, I don't know, might want to go shopping, but then go to, I won't name them, but a local Italian restaurant for their tea before they go home and things like that. So let's try and think out of the box instead of just like our standard approach of just getting people in, 1 hour shopping, jump in a car and home. Let's have a look at trying to support both the night and daytime economy. And as I say, this is for 3 months. As we go through that period, we'll continually to monitor it and make sure we're getting the most impact that we possibly can. But I'm hoping that everybody can support this and get behind it. And let's really, this isn't just about car parking. This is about COVID recovery plan and getting behind our town centres, our retailers and our businesses. And this is our contribution to that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Townsend, and I've got to by process bring in Councillor Sue Graham before we go to a vote.
Chair, apologies, Chair. Councillor Leanne Pate did request to speak earlier in the item.
Sorry, I didn't see that. So, Councillor Pate, are you okay? Do you want to speak or as a point?
Councillor Pate shouldn't really speak now that we went.
No.
Yeah, we could.
It's fine, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Townsend covered it all.
There will be an opportunity later on. So, Councillor Graham, as per process, can we ask you to come in before we move to a vote on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I was listening to that debate, I was getting really, really hot under the collar at some of the comments that were made. I was extremely puzzled by Councillor Fewings when he said that, you know, we'd only received this at the last minute, etc., etc., when he's been emailing officers for details all day. And does he not pick up the phone to his other colleague and talk about what's happening at full council? The email with the amendment came out earlier today and had more than sufficient time to discuss that. I was staggered when Councillor Hosker said that he shops in Accrington. How on earth can he sit on this council where we're trying our darndest to support local businesses, local shops, local food and drink establishments, and he says he goes and shops in Accrington because it's free car parking? He's not even contributing to the income that we get from our car parks when they're not free. So I was really, you know, amazed, and I have tempered my views on this. I very heartily welcome the amendments, and the reason it's been done as an amendment is for procedural reasons, not because we were trying to pull a fast one or anything like that. We wanted to bring it in earlier, but it was because of the council's constitutional rules and regulations, it was decided that it better be done as an amendment. And it's an amendment that I heartily welcome. I think Councillor Townsend's gone over all the whys and the wherefores. I think we have to recognise that people do things differently today to what they used to do. I know younger people pick up their kids from school and quite often nip to Marks and Spencer's for their tea, or nip into town to get a couple of errands, even nip into town to go to the bank. And they take the kids in and the kids say, "Oh, Mum, can we have a McDonald's?" or whatever. And, you know, that's the way modern life is. And having free parking, car parking after 3 p.m. means that we're not just supporting the retail sector, which we are, of course, but we're also supporting all those small food and drink establishments around the town centre that can benefit from this. So, yeah, I most heartily welcome the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. Before we go to a vote, I believe Councillor, yeah, we're going to come back to that in a minute, Councillor Townley. Thank you for your vigilance on the timekeeping. We'll move a motion shortly. Councillor Fewings, you had a point of clarification. Can you make that before we go to a vote?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a point of clarification there. I'm sure Councillor Sue Graham didn't mean to misrepresent what I said, but I very clearly said that there was no opportunity for myself and Sarah Hall, who are both working councillors, to have had a discussion before the call. What I did not say is that I had no access to my emails in the middle of the day, but it's great to know that council officers are sharing my emails with Councillor Sue Graham without asking me for permission. Thank you.
Okay, your clarification has been noted. Can we now move to the vote, the amendment? Can we please, the polling is already open. That's very efficient. Thank you, Alison. And some of us have voted. Okay, are we getting on? Everybody okay with this? Any problems, anybody?
We're just about there, Mr. Mayor. Just bear with me.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. So the amendment is carried, which means I've got to do a bit of reading now, so please bear with me. So the amendment that's carried, I've got to read this in full. It's one, approval of the proposed tariffs of fees and charges from the 1st of April 2021 with an increase of 2.5% as outlined in Appendix A attached. To authorise the Head of Finance and Property in consultation with the relevant Head of Service to determine any new changes or changes to existing charges relating to preparation and approval of 2021-22 revenue budget. 3. Authorise the executive portfolio members to amend fees and charges periodically in their own area on the basis that overall income in their portfolio remains the same as a minimum. Let me finish reading out, Councillor Baker, then we come back to your point of order. Point number 4, to authorise the strategic Head of Economy and Growth in consultation with the Executive Member for Resources and Performance Management and the Head of Finance and Property to adjust fees and charges in relation to the market service from time to time to reflect current trading conditions and the overall position of the market. 5, that Council recommends, as in part 1, that the leader or relevant executive member authorises the Head of Street Scene to make the necessary adjustments in order to implement a new car parking scheme to be known as Free After 3 PM. Free After 3 PM will be introduced to council-operated pay and display car parks in Burnham Town Centre from the 20th of February 2021 for an initial period of 3 months. Under Free After 3, there will be free parking available in these car parks from 3 PM every day. Part 2, the full council approves the budget for the scheme, £27,000, to be met from the council's COVID reserve as the initiative is part of the council's plan for the economic recovery of the town as we start to emerge from the worst of coronavirus pandemic. Any member, and I see there's Councillor Baker's, I think I've got Councillor Baker who wants to.
Yeah, just a quick one, Mr. Mayor. What's the amendment to? Which of the recommendations is it pertaining to? Because there is a rule in the Constitution that you can't bring in anything new. You can only amend something that doesn't change anything beyond belief, etc. But I can't see anything. It's actually which one you're actually amending, if you will. It seems to be a complete new item on that, which is against the Constitution, I feel.
Luckman, can we come in for clarification on that particular point? Did you get that, Luckman? I will not be reading that again.
Sorry, I'm just trying to sort of unmute myself. Apologies. In terms of the amendments to the motion, just having a look at, sorry, Councillor Baker, looking at council procedure rules. An amendment to a motion, you can add in words and insert words and add other words. So I think what was your concern? Sorry.
And that it isn't amending any words or changing any words. It's just adding a new item on here.
You can
I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see how we're going it through the Constitution. That's all. Because we're not amending any of these items. It's not an amendment. It's an additional item.
Councillor Baker, you can add, but it's adding words, isn't it? And 14.64.
We'll have to leave it for now, Luckman, because I'm going to have to check it back from my side.
Okay, yeah,
but
it's
I'd hate to do something wrong. That was all. If it goes through, then it's.
So, well, if we've got any concerns about it, we can deal with it. We'd rather deal with it now because I don't. I think it's if you've raised a valid concern, it's something which we need to have a look at. Just bear with me.
I'm going to have to look at the Constitution as well.
We need to address Councillor Baker's
1464. What page, Luckman, roughly?
Can I just extend standing orders for the start? So, if you don't mind, because I'm just conscious it's that time in the evening now. Whilst we do that, can we please? Can I just look at? Can I propose a motion that we extend the meeting for 1 hour beyond 3 hours?
I will second you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is that okay, everybody? Any dissent?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm an owner of a small child, like Councillor Fewing said last time we had a meeting. And I think it's prudent that we be mindful of that, because obviously I have been on a meeting for a long time now, worked all day, which is fine, but to extend it would not work. But also I do actually have to go back out to work as well. So regardless of what happens, I physically can't stay.
Okay, that's dissent in my view. Then it goes to a vote. Then, Alison.
Dissent from me as well. I
Yeah,
don't approve of it. either.
I've seen some dissent. I've seen some other councillors. So let's let it go to a vote then, please.
Sorry, can I
Mayor, can I just have
speak
a point
against it?
Sorry,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor.
yeah, one second. I've got your dissent, Councillor Fewings. So what happens is once you dissent, it goes to a vote.
Can I speak against the proposal?
Yeah, okay. You want to add something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I just want to say that from an inclusivity perspective, I really don't think it's a good idea to be routinely having to extend meetings. I think that this agenda has been known for some time, and if it was felt that it was unable to deal with it in one meeting, we should have had additional meetings and allow people that have disabilities, have young children, working mums, the opportunity to attend the meetings. And I think it sets a really bad example when we want people, a diverse range of people, to stand as councillors if we keep doing this to people without notice.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Councillor Fewings. Councillor Townley, you want to say something, Councillor Townley?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If we don't extend if we don't suspend the standing orders and continue, are we going to have to return for an extraordinary meeting before Christmas?
Yes.
I'd just like to make that clear to all my colleagues, and also to remind them that perhaps we wouldn't do this on a routine basis if we were a bit quicker with our replies.
Thank you very much. That's sorted. So we can now go to a vote. I think everyone else who wants to say their piece. We heard you all. Alison will now coordinate a poll.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did type an RTS, but it didn't work. I just wanted, can an officer clarify why we'd need an extraordinary meeting?
Because the business of the council hasn't been completed.
It wouldn't be an extraordinary meeting, it'd be an adjourned meeting. But yes, we would need another meeting.
There'll be another meeting, yes.
But why? We've still got half an hour left of this meeting. Why would we have to have a new meeting?
But if you don't, the extra hour is just, Councillor Fewings, if you don't finish in that half an hour, like we don't want a situation where last time when we had to move it back to have another meeting, which was something that happened. So it's not an extraordinary meeting, but it was another adjourned meeting that we had to go through the remaining council business, which was unfinished at the back end of another meeting. So we're going to go to a vote now. I've heard you. You've said your piece. Thank you. Alison, we've got the results coming up.
Shortly, Mr. Mayor.
Look, whilst in the meantime, have you got some address between yourself and Howard Baker on these constitutional matters, which are obviously taking a bit of time as well?
Councillors Mihana and Lorne. Oh, and Ishtiaq, are you having... Oh, Councillor Lorne, I can see you've completed yours, but Councillors Ishtiaq and Mihana, are you having a problem with the voting?
Yes, I am. I've lost it on my screen.
Would you like to cast your vote verbally, Councillor Mihana?
Yes, I would. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Ishtiaq, yours is just going through now. Okay, so Mr. Mayor, we've got 23 for the extension. We have 14 plus Councillor Mihana, which is 15 against.
Okay, that's fine. That's carried. That's carried. Okay, look, can we please move on this issue? Have you managed to find a solution, the answer for Councillor Baker?
Yes, I'm just waiting for Councillor Baker just to have a look at
Oh,
the.
sorry.
I don't want to fucking
I am back. I think the amendment would be to recommendation 4, Luckman.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, and I'm probably happy with that, apart from the fact that we're using the court that took £27,000 from somewhere else, which are you saying and allow them to change anything and use money from anywhere?
Well, I think to some extent it does, Councillor Baker, but on the other hand, there is an establishment of a COVID recovery reserve to help earlier on in the agenda. So I'm trying to just refer to the relevant section. Just bear with me.
Is there any way we can take this outside, gentlemen?
I think it's a good idea if we sort of adjourn the meeting because it's a legal aspect. If we move in second to go into private session and then we'll come back in to public session if that's okay once we've clarified the point. Is that okay? So members stay where they are, but if somebody can move in second, then we go into private. As long as there's no dissent.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
may I move that we move to private session?
I second that.
Got it.
Mr. Mayor, then we can move to private session.
Yeah. And no dissent.
MJ?
Okay. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Just going to ask Chief Operating Officer Lukman Patel to just say a few words on the finalisation of the amendment.
Thank you very much. Before the amendment is put to a vote, there was just some clarity required in terms of where the amendment sitted in the actual motion or which is being presented to full council. So it's been suggested that it sits with item at the end of item number 4, and so the amendment will read, and I'll just read out for the purposes of the minute. The whole of item number 4, or motion numbered 4, which says to authorize the executive portfolio members to amend fees and charges periodically in their own area on the basis that overall income in that portfolio area remains the same as a minimum. And then the following additional words are to be added. And number 1, to recommend that the leader or relevant executive member authorizes the head of street scene to make necessary adjustments in order to implement a new car parking scheme to be known as, open quotation marks, free after 3 p.m, close quotation marks, full stop, open quotation marks, free after 3 p.m, close quotation marks, will be introduced to council-operated pay and display car parks in Burnley Town Centre from the 20th of February 2021 for an initial 3-month period, full stop. Under free after 3 p.m, there will be free parking available in these car parks from 3 p.m. every day. Number 2, that full council approves a budget for the scheme, £27,000 in brackets, to be met from the council's COVID reserve, as the initiative is part of this council's plan for the economic recovery of the town as we start to emerge from the worst of the coronavirus pandemic.
Much for that. And before we go to a vote on that, can I just, does Councillor Graham want to, as the original motion mover, you have the right to reply? Are you okay? Can we move to a vote? You want to say something?
I don't want to say anything. I don't think anything I could say would add to the discussion.
Okay, that was a comprehensive discussion offline.
Yeah.
We will now go to the vote on the substantive motion. Electronic poll is now open.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can you clarify, is this for amendment?
This is the substantive motion. The amendment got voted through before, so we have to vote on it again as a substantive motion.
Is that the original motion or the
amended vote a motion? We're voting through it to make sure it's substantive. Can we please just put ourselves on mute if you're not talking, colleagues? Okay, waiting for you, my colleague Alison.
Yeah, Councillor Arif Khan, it looks like you might be having a problem, and Councillor John Hart.
you know, on screen, I got the question, but then it disappeared.
Which one would you support? How would you want to vote, Councillor Khan?
Yeah, if it is for the amendment, I'm against it here.
This is the amendment's been voted on. So what's your vote on the substantial motion? How do you want to vote?
I don't understand properly, you know.
Do you want to explain? I mean, I've tried to explain the amendment.
Mr. Mayor, I can do that if you want. The substantive motion is the amendment to introduce a new budget of £27,000 and a recommendation to authorise the head of street scene from the relevant exec member or leader to introduce free after 3 p.m. car parking. So that is now the substantive.
Okay, right. Okay, I vote for then.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harbour, have you got a confirm or a submit button on your screen?
I usually do, Chair, but on this occasion it disappeared. I voted for, and then you didn't ask me to confirm it, so I'll vote for verbally if you like.
Thank you.
The long-windedness of this whole item has confused some people. I can see.
It's come back up now.
Don't be voting again, Councillor Harbour. Okay, Alison, over to you in a minute.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to close, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation and patience. Okay, that's clearly passed, I believe. Yep, I can see that's passed. So the substantive motion is carried with some relief that this has been concluded. Item 7F on the agenda, constitutional updates, reporting and outside bodies report. Councillor Mark Townsend, will you please move the report?
I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Leanne Pate, will you second the report?
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Any member? No. So we'll now go to the vote, which will take in two parts. Part 1, the recommendations at paragraph 7, 8, 9, 10 part 1, 10 part 2, 11 and 12 of the report. And there's part 2, which is recommendation 10 part 3 to appoint an experienced opposition member to the Economic Recovery Board from the nominations received. So for part 1, members, if there's no dissent on this item, I will take it that members approve the recommendations for part 1. Okay, I don't hear any dissent. The item is carried. We will now move to the vote for an experienced opposition member for the Economic Recovery Board. The following nominations have been received. So Councillor Maggie Lishman's, so can I ask Councillor Birtwistle to move the nomination?
I wish to move Councillor Margaret Lishman to the role.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Gordon Lishman to move the nomination? Second the nomination. Councillor Gordon Lishman.
I'm entirely happy to do that, Mr. Mayor.
I would presume so as well.
I know what's good for me.
Councillor Charlie Briggs is another nomination. Do I have anyone moving that nomination? Is it Councillor Mark Payne? Are you moving that nomination?
I'll move that nomination, Mr. Mayor.
And do we have who do we have to second that nomination?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
And who's it? Councillor Mottershead?
Yeah.
Good to hear your voice. I've not heard your voice for a while. Councillor David Roper, a possible nomination. Does anybody want to move and second Councillor David Roper? Alison, you want to say something?
I think yeah, he's indicating that he doesn't want to put himself forward.
Withdrawn. Thank you. That's fine. So we've got two nominations, and movers and second have been complete. Councillor Maggie Lishman and Councillor Charlie Briggs. So, if no candidate receives an absolute majority, then the nominee with the lowest number of votes will be eliminated. There's only two anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. So we're going to go to a vote. There you are. Flying through this, aren't we now?
Can we abstain?
Forgive me, Mr. Mayor. I think my voting has gone skew with again. I voted for a candidate, but it hasn't asked me to submit it.
Okay, Alison, what's the process there?
You can confirm your vote at the end, Councillor Harbour, when we put the results up.
Okay, thank you.
Can we not abstain?
If you don't want to vote Councillor Roper, then you don't need to select either of the candidates, and your vote will be blank at the end.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, have you got a confirm button anywhere on your screen?
No, I haven't got one.
Okay, just bear with me then. You may have to cast your vote verbally at the end when we get through.
Okay, no. Actually, do you know what? I've got one now. Sorry.
Just come up now, thank you.
Come through. It's gone anyway. It's okay. I can't. It's not working for me, but I'm happy because I went walk because both of them are very experienced opposition members. So I'll leave that as an abstention on that particular point. I risk myself not getting a Christmas card.
I've done the same.
Okay. Okay. On that basis, Councillor, thank you, members. Councillor Maggie Lishman has been appointed as the experienced opposition member on the Economic Recovery Board. I love that title, experienced opposition member. It's very okay. Thank you very much. So we now move to item 8. That's been completed. Thank you, Alison, for that. You've been brilliant as ever. Item 8, reports of committee chairs. We're making some good, swift progress. Members, please note that there is no report from the Chair of Audit and Standards on this occasion, as the committee has not met since the last council meeting. What's going on there? Item 8A, Chair of Scrutiny. Councillor Andy Thatcher, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move my third report of the year. In doing so, in my last paragraph, I've thanked all scrutiny members for the extra work we've had to do, accommodating heavy agendas and extra meetings in a difficult year for everyone. However, it would be remiss of me not to thank the officers of scrutiny, Imelda and Chris and Alison and others who put a lot of work in. When you look at where we were this time last year, when people who thought WebEx was something to do with spiders, I think everybody would like to say thank you to them, and I move my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thatcher. I love that WebEx spider analogy. Okay, any questions? Just checking the chat. There's no questions. It's a very nice congratulations note from Councillor Briggs to Councillor Lishman. But there's any observations? Okay, that's fine. We can move progress now. Thank you very much, Councillor Thatcher. Item 8B, Chair of Licensing, Councillor Ali Khan. Will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move my report. In moving so, I would like to thank all the officers and the councillors, member of licensing committee for their hard work during the difficult times, and we work as a team. So I would like to thank all the officers and the councillors from the licensing team.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any questions? Can't see anything in the chat.
Nothing.
No. Sorry, who was that?
Nothing received, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Any observations for Councillor Khan's report? Anything, Chris?
No observations.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Khan. We won't move on to item 8C, Chair of Development Control. Councillor Frank Khan, will you please move your report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll move my report, and in doing so, I would also like to thank the committee and officers, of course, for all their hard work. It has been rather difficult. We've had a surprisingly number of applications to deal with so far this year, and it's very encouraging that a lot of people are putting applications in. Thank you very much, everyone.
You're very welcome, Councillor Kant. Very, very nice of you to say them words. Any questions for Councillor Kant?
No questions received, Chair.
Any observations for Councillor Frank Kant?
No observations, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Kant.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. You're very welcome. So we now move on to the strategic plan progress reports on item 8. I will take each report in order. I will ask for any questions on the report, and the executive member will respond to one. Well, looking at the amount of questions, we'll work it out. The same procedure will then be followed for observations. Can I remind members with a question or observation to clearly, I say this again, quote the page number and reference number. We will not get away with that by just saying any random comments. Also, will members please be concise? Please be concise with their questions and observations. It's a big request from me. Okay, leaders report. Councillor Mark Townsend, will you please move your report?
I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions?
None present, Chair.
None present. Gone. Any observations?
Again, none presently, Chair.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's fine then. So we now move on to the Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Health and Wellbeing. Councillor Leanne Pearce, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the report, but I do want to just say a few words about the vaccinations over the last few days. So they have arrived in town, but people please do need to hold their nerve a little bit. Whilst it's really good news that they're here, we still have got a long way off yet before we're in any kind of shape that the public feels like they are herd immunity or whatever the term you want to use. So 5 million doses, sounds a lot, but that's actually 2.5 million people nationally being vaccinated, and of only 975 people in Burnley have receiving this vaccination over the next month or so. So they will be receiving it this week, 3 days, and again in 3 weeks' time, there will be 3 days for a second vaccination. But 975 people really needs taken into context. Saying that, everybody that has been for their vaccinations over the last few days, it has been at best described a challenging operation. And I can't let the opportunity pass without saying thank you to all those that have been involved. It's not a council function. It's obviously a medical function, but everybody has had to pull out all the stops to make this happen. So it wouldn't have been possible without all those people. And I think there are notable mentions in this. There were so many non-medical staff around, not just the council staff, including Lukman Patel's team. There were the expert military organisational skills of our very own Foggy and Winston, but also the dedication and patience of Scott Bryce and his team from the Leisure Trust and Lancashire Fire and Rescue. The process is going to be a learning one for everybody, and I do believe that Councillor Bill Brindle has been down there to have his done today, and he was very much full of praise in the process. So thank you very much to everybody who's been involved in that, and I do move my report.
Well, thank you very much for that. So we have some questions, I believe. Thank you. Well, Councillor Fewings, your question first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 188 PL4. Whilst I'm not saying Councillor Pate has psychic abilities, I'm sure she knows what I'm about to ask. In relation to the play strategy, just an update on when that's happening. A report earlier said it was happening in December. I've asked basically for the last 18 months confirmation of whether Jesse's Park is going to be saved or continue to be on the CHOP list. So I'd like to ask that question again. To avoid an observation later, I want to also extend my thanks on all the work on the COVID and agree with what Councillor Pate said. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Can I take a few more questions, Councillor Pate, before there's a couple more questions. You okay to take them?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, that's okay.
Councillor Gordon-Lishman, you have a question?
Indeed, yes, and I noticed that the Lane Bottom jury looks as if it's been particularly active over the next few minutes. On PE1B, top of page 188, which is on the vaccinations, in order to be effective overall in a population, it's normal that you need somewhere between 85 and 90% of a population to be vaccinated. Will Councillor Pate please encourage all members of the council and leading members of the council staff to set a good example by committing themselves to their own vaccinations at the earliest possible moment in order to encourage people throughout the town to take advantage of the opportunity when it arises?
Thank you for that, Councillor Lishman. Councillor Maggie Lishman, am I right? You've got a question or is it an observation, Councillor Maggie Lishman?
Question, Mr. Mayor. It's page 189. It's PE2. I note that there's been support to the Leisure Trust in the financial report. Reading your comments, I guess there will be further financial requests. And my question is, when might this be made? I hope that when it is made, that when it comes to council with a request for finances, that there is a full business recovery plan detailing their actions and their financial demands and how that's going to be spent and the impact on the council. Whilst acknowledging how important the Leisure Trust is to us, both as an organisation and also for the health of the town, I think it's important that we understand our commitment and how they are going to use that money in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. No more questions. That's it now. So can you please hand over? Can I hand over to yourself, Councillor Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just firstly, in answer to Councillor Fewings, sorry, I probably should have just started with that, knowing that you were going to ask, and I had promised. The decision about the play strategy is there is one closure that will go ahead, and it's been one that has been heavily consulted with the ward members in the Danes House and Stoniholm area, and it's for a variety of reasons that will go ahead. However, in the sort of short to intermediary term, in the terms of play strategy, I do believe that the right thing to do is just to park that, excuse the pun, for now, because we need to look at where there are underutilised play areas. We need to look at whether there are actually some alternative uses for them. This is not the right time to be closing any kind of outdoor spaces unless absolutely necessary. So I think, you know, consultation will be made in the future, although the strategy still sits on a back burner, but we don't have any plans to implement that just at this time. Thank you for that. Just to speak to Councillor Gordon Lishman, absolutely, I think everybody should be encouraged, but considering the cohort that I will be in, I will probably be a long time off getting my vaccine. I think the lowest cohort of 9 out of 30 million people who were on this cohort is the over 50s. So whilst I know I don't want to presume Councillor Lishman's age, but I'm guessing he's over 50. So he will be on that list at some point. But I think until alternative vaccines come on stream, we're just not going to get through the volume of people. He is right in what he says about herd immunity. We're just nowhere near that yet. And it is a light at the end of the tunnel, but let's not all think we're just about to come out of the tunnel. On Maggie Lishman, I think you're absolutely right. There are short-term things that have had to be put in place for the Leisure Trust, but currently waiting the outcome of some legal matters. And also, if there is a substantial contribution needs to be made in the future, it's absolutely going to have to come before councillors, and we would expect that all of that would be fully consulted on the future of any big payments to the Leisure Trust. Whilst we respect them and they are a key partner, you know, we can't just hand over money without a secure business plan and robust procedures in place. Thank you for all your questions.
We've got a couple of observations, but I'm pretty sure, I thought Councillor Gordon Lishman was 21, he told me last time I spoke to him. Observation from Councillor Anne Kelly first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 187, about the COVID-19 testing. Because I've been really quite poorly and still suffering with the long COVID, I've been encouraged to have some more tests. I still have no sense of taste or smell. And I was tested twice when the council were running it. It was professional, it was efficient, it was quick. I went yesterday to the one next to Tesco. Yeah. You've got to have an appointment to go. So I had an appointment which said 10:30. So I turned up at exactly 10:30. It looks like there isn't a queue. And when you get inside, they've got one of those zigzag queues. So you know, when you get in there is a long queue. The man came out after a few minutes and said, I was about 10th in the queue. The first 6 people, you'll be about 10 minutes, because once everybody's left, we've got to sanitize the room that they've been in, and it takes 10 minutes. When the council did it, they came with a wipe, wiped over the chair, sprayed your hands, end of. It took 10 minutes, then the next 6 went in, then he popped out again and said, you'll have to wait because they'll have to be done, which takes 6 to 7 minutes. And then it takes 10 minutes to disinfect the room. It was absolutely ludicrous. I reckon they're doing about 12 people in every half an hour. And there are 14 members of staff there. There's 2 on the way in, there's 2 on the way out. There's the people who do it, there's the cleaners. incredibly inefficient compared to the system that we had going before. And I'm not surprised it's discouraging people from going. Don't think there's anything we can do about it, but I did want to make the point. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Your point's noted. And I've got Councillor Newhouse with an observation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's PE 1B, page 118, and it's about the vaccinations. I had a couple of reports back from elderly residents who went for their vaccinations yesterday, and there were a few problems with the long queue outside in the rain and the cold. I mean, that is too much for them, and a delay at the end, I think, where they had to hang around in the hall. Is it for 15 minutes or something like that? Again, another long delay for elderly people over 80s, etc., who can't stand there and do that. I have heard today it was better, so hopefully things have got better. If the exec member could just check, and it's not a question, it's an observation of what was happening, if we could just make sure we observe it and make sure it does run more smoothly in the future and keeps in that within a form, that would be better. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. That's the end of observations. Councillor Pearce, if you want to respond to them observations, please.
Mr. Mayor, apologies, Councillor Gordon Birtwistle has requested an observation.
Oh, I've got to take the observation. I can't afford not to give him the observation. Go on, Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say pretty much what Councillor Kelly has said, but I would like to thank all the council staff who have been involved in this for the past 12 months, to thank the staff that did it, as I believe, efficiently, no queues with the swab test, particularly Councillor Cosima Townley, who was one of the leading lights in that. And it was a pity when that stopped and we went on to this system that we have now, that is run by a private company who were charging the government something in the region, I believe, of £7 billion to run a shambles that was run before very efficiently by the local authority, and God knows why they ever wanted to change it. So I would like again to thank all the staff that were involved in the very efficient system that we had, and regret the system we've got now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birtwistle. I do understand that Councillor Brindle wants us just to make a quick observation, but I believe Councillor Brindle.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll probably be speaking on the contrary to what's been reported already, but I went down this morning, 11:40, down to St. Peter's Centre. I was very quickly welcomed and ushered in with several other people of my age. Went into the room where the badminton courts had been marked out. Everything was very efficient. Sanitize, you personally sanitize your hands, mask, all names taken, all details taken, and you sat in the room. I counted the rows. There were 6 rows of 6 people on each row, and you progressively moved forward as they counted you off in minutes. Very efficient indeed, as they go down by 10:30, 10:29, etc., etc. And you walked in batches of about 4 or 5 people. You were ushered around and you were sanitized again, very efficiently. Slow movement, but very positive. They ran approximately half an hour behind time. Eventually came out to go and have the inoculation, again sanitized. Once you'd had the inoculation, all your details taken again. It wasn't being in the forces, but it worked. Everything was very efficient, not only with medical staff, they had the people from Preston Fire Brigade, Fire Service over there. They had other people, well, you might say members of public. I don't know who they were because they weren't in uniform, but it moved very positively, but slowly. And the whole issue, once you'd had your inoculation, you were asked to sit down for 15 minutes, just in case you were a reactor. There were no reactors that I heard of or saw. I didn't hear one bad word in that 1 hour that I was there against any of the staff. They were absolutely superb. And once you'd been cleared after your 15 minutes, you weren't reacted, you were allowed out. The whole issue took just 1 hour. I couldn't sing anything but praise for all those people, because I do believe yesterday it was a bit of a fiasco. But today, I couldn't see how they could make it better without running people too. It was very positive, and I can't say anything more, but I really praise them for the work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for your feedback. Councillor Pear, can we please succinctly comment on them observations?
Thank you very much. Councillor Kelly, we continue to hear these really strange stories about how long it's taking government-run, processes. When we had the Dream Team, Councillor Anwar and Councillor Townley running it, they were doing twice as many people with half as much money. I think lessons to be learnt there by the government to get onto those people. It is a really important issue that she's raising, though, because if that is how people are having to wait, and for example, Anne could be coming out of work to have that test because she needs to, or having to make arrangements for other people in the household, it's going to put you off. And what we really need is people to coming out to make it easy as possible for them to get tested. Just to utter it's the same as Councillor Birtwistle. He couldn't have summed it up better. It's very, very important, and they did a really great job, all those staff that were there. And I think just now that everybody else has waded in and taken over, we need not to forget those people that stepped up when we didn't know what kind of risks they were stepping into, and that they worked really hard for not a lot of recompense, which there's a lovely cafeteria down there and everything else now. They were living off Tesco butties and having to nip to the loos in Tesco's, which is a whole different world. To Councillor Newhouse and Councillor Brindle on the vaccines, I think as a reassurance, I think Councillor Brindle's words there tell you how much change there has been from yesterday. It was day one. There were around 500 people, I believe, all elderly, all vulnerable, all obviously having difficulty standing up. We're in the middle of winter. It's freezing cold. Everybody's nerves were on edge. And I think people were, doing their best yesterday, but there's been a learning curve. There was some computer issues yesterday, but council staff were really all proud of them, and they are continuing to meet with those NHS heroes regularly to make sure that we get the best service for Burnley residents. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. That completes your report. Executive Member for Resources and Performance, Councillor Sue Graham, would you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move my report. I think I've probably said enough tonight. I'm happy to take any questions and observations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Any questions for Councillor Graham?
None received presently, Chair.
Okay, no questions received. Any observation? 1 second, we've got a question.
There is one, Chair, sorry, from Councillor Margaret Lishman.
Just slipped in, Councillor Lishman. Go ahead, please, with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question is in relation to page 192, PF4, sort of obliquely about the organisational strategy. I note the comment about empowering our staff, and the question is, normally for staff we would have a team event for them, a day for staff where we would hand out prizes for people who'd been particularly good in their area. I think all of our staff have worked incredibly well this year, and I'd like to ask the executive member if there's been any thought given to an alternative. I know that with the CVS, what we've done with our staff this year is given staff a voucher each to spend as they would as a thank you for the ongoing work that they've done during the pandemic. And rather than pay for a staff conference to take place and probably end up having to have it virtually, I wonder if the executive would like to consider that as an option. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. That completes the questions. You want to come back on that, please, Councillor Grimm?
I'm very happy to come back on that. Yes, we do recognise the hard work that all staff have put in over the last few months and are continuing. I mean, this isn't going to stop today. They're going to continue to have to do things above and beyond over the next few months. As a result, Councillor Townsend has very generously given all staff across the organisation a voucher for £25 each as a as a mark of our respect for them and our thanks to them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very welcome. Now we'll come on to any observations. Are there any observations for Councillor Graham, please?
There are none received presently, Chair, but I think Maggie Lishman is indicating
Councillor Maggie Lishman there waving.
by hand.
Go ahead, Councillor Lishman.
And I am, Mr. Mayor, this evening. I'm delighted to hear that that has gone through. That was certainly the action that I was going to do had I continued in that portfolio. So I'm delighted to see that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
In relation to page 190, PF1, I note that we've got 81% of calls answered, and I'd just like to make the observation that just picking up a telephone is great. How do we know if that call has had a successful outcome for the person making the call? And I know I've made this point before, which is why I put it in as an observation, but I do hope that Councillor Graham, who I know agrees with me on this one, is going to change this criteria as soon as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lishman. Do you want to come? There's no more observations, is there, Chris? I can't see any more on there.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Graham, you've got the.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Councillor Lishman knows I agree with it. It's something that worries me as well, and I know that it worries other members. We're gradually, I think, holding Liberata's feet to the fire on this sort of issue, monitoring as best we can, and also, as I've said before, asking for members to give us information if they experience bad service. That's really important to us, you know, the time, the date, you know, the situation. If we're going to be scrutinising this fully, you know, more fully than we are now, then we need that information, we need that intelligence. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very welcome, Councillor Graham. Thank you very much. Now we move on to the Executive Member for Housing, Councillor John Harbour. Would you please move your report?
You're on mute, Councillor Harbour.
My apologies for that, Mr. Mayor. I'll move my report.
Thank you. No problem. No problem at all. Any questions for Councillor John Harbour?
Councillor Hosker.
Councillor Hosker, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hosker.
Can I ask Councillor Harbour, if like me, how many complaints do you get regarding calicos in a month?
Is that your question? Anyone? Is that it? Yeah. Is that your question? Thank you. Any other questions do we have?
Sorry, Mayor. The point I'm making out there, Councillor Harbour, is because it quizzed one time when I was speaking against, as you know, the press report about calicos. And my point being, after that press report went in, I got loads of feedback off it.
Yeah. What page is it? What's the page number?
Sorry, brother. I haven't got it.
It's nice that you've been calling me buddy. That's nice.
Well, you know, I find it. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I can't find it, mate, and it's only a quick question.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. Christmas. I'll take it for you.
Right. Only thing I'm trying to get across here is to John Harbour. If private landlords,
Councillor John Harbour,
as you know, we have selective licensing. If some of these landlords did or didn't do half of what Calicos did, we would penalise them as a council under the select licensing conditions. I want to know of Councillor Harbour, and because if he's getting complaints the same as I am getting umpteen complaints, and my other colleagues who are listening to this now will tell you the same, they're getting complaints, and it seems like John Harbour's the only one that's not getting them.
Councillor John Harbour, just to remind you, Councillor Harbour. Okay, any more questions to Councillor Harbour? Chris, any more questions?
No, there are none received presently, Chair.
Thank you. That's the only question you have, Councillor John Harbour?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to have to tell Councillor Oscar that I get very, very few complaints regarding Calico. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues there. We've met with the Chief Exec and he assures me that actions are going to be put in place for better customer services. I'll take him at his word at that. And as I say, you've asked a question of me personally. I haven't had any complaints with Calico. And I'll reiterate again, that doesn't mean to say that there aren't issues there. but I think Calico will deal with those issues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harbour. Any observations for Councillor Harbour? I've got Councillor Hussain there. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, that's the Councillor Hussain, then I'll bring you back in, Councillor Hosker. Councillor Hussain first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say to Councillor Hosker that he addresses the Mayor of Burnley
Excuse me,
by
sir.
his
Excuse me, sir. I appreciate the point, but I need a page number, sir.
observations, Mr. Mayor. I'm just making observation.
On the page number, please, sir.
Mr. Mayor, is Councillor Hussain not just making a point of order?
Okay. Then
Yes,
okay.
a point of order. Thank
Yes.
you, Councillor Townley. A point of order. Can I ask that Councillor Hosker addresses the Mayor of Burnley appropriately? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, observation from Councillor Hosker.
Mr. Mayor.
Yay!
Going from the last council statement, which I find a bit of a joke, have I ever showed you any disrespect?
No, I just think you don't.
What I'm saying is, Mr. Mayor, is indicated there, but I'm being disrespectful towards you, and I find his remarks offensive.
Okay, but Councillor Hosker, just some words you used tonight, I think I want you to reflect upon them early on this evening. But I think overall with me, you've always been very straight on with me, so I have no issue there. But I think that they're just trying to make sure the terminology is actually Mr. Mayor and Mayor. I'm okay, but obviously that's an observation they made. But yeah,
Mr. Mayor, me and you go back a long way.
Okay.
Right. I'm not some comedian like he thinks he is. And I expect, same as I give to everybody else here, a bit of respect. So maybe he could choose his words, especially when he's talking to me. And especially if he don't want no back talk about it. If he wants to carry on, that's fine. But I will take listen, he started this off. I have never ever showed you no disrespect. Ever.
No,
I wouldn't think of doing that, but
no, you've been very good, Councillor Hosker, in the past. Let's keep the spirits high and keep a positive outlook to the.
My point now under observations, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Harbour is this. He's good at copying off my Facebook page now and again. And if he's as good as what I think he is, because I like to give him credit now and again, he's then noted that Calico's residents in Padiham and Burnley making comments about Calico, so there's no doubt he's read them. So not only is it my other two colleagues, what have been up to report with me, what are getting complaints, there's a complaints on the Facebook page as well, unless he's not reading like he usually does. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your observation. Okay, that's the final observation. Can I ask Councillor Harbour to respond to them observations?
Yes.
Okay, one second. Councillor Graham, did you have an observation? Councillor Graham, sorry, Councillor Harbour.
No, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, Councillor Harbour, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Oscar might not believe this, but I have got far more better things to do than monitor what's on his Facebook page. But I will say this, Mr. Mayor, and I'll reiterate it. If other colleagues have got concerns with Calico, then by all means raise them with me. As I said, I've met with Calico, and the new the new person in place has assured me that if there are any issues with the tenants, that he will sort them out and they will offer a better customer service. Now, if Councillor Oscar and a couple of his colleagues are getting complaints, fine, we'll sort them out. But again, there's 45 members of this council, and very few members. There are members who've raised issues about Calico, but very few. And regards to his comments about selective licensing, legislation can't make you can't challenge social landlords under that legislation. Private sector is one thing, social landlords is another. But let's just remember, Calico have over 5,000 properties throughout the borough. And yes, any organisation that has 5,000 properties throughout the borough will sometimes get complaints. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harbour. That concludes your report. Thank you. Can we move to the Executive Member for Community and Environmental Services, Councillor Afrasiab Anwar?
You mean I've argued again?
Move your report, please, Councillor Anwar. I don't know what the noise was in the background. Go ahead, Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, I moved my report, and in doing so, I just want to say a few words. I think the first thing that springs to mind is that I just want to say a few words about the incident that took place out at Marks and Spencer's a couple of weeks ago. In terms of one, the response of members of the public and the response of the police officers that came to the scene. And also the response of Burnley Council officers as well. But first of all, just to like to say that our thoughts are with the victims who were attacked, and thoughts that they have a speedy recovery. But I think one of the things that needs to be mentioned is the manner in which the police dealt with the incident, but also kept members of the public fully updated, particularly around the motives of the actual offence that took place. Because one of the things that we noticed straight away as elected members, as council officers, was some of the hatred that was being spread on social media, and the way that the police handled it ensured that that was kicked into touch straight away, and it was handled really well. And then messages got out and reassured our communities, and then obviously the messages from Burnley Council officers, in particular our comms team, the work that they did around that, and I think they deserve a mention just for the way that they handled that whole situation. And having spoken to the members of the bid, one of the things that, because of the response we've seen, is that confidence is still there, and the residents of Burnley who are shopping in Burnley have been reassured that they can come into Burnley Town Centre with confidence. So I just wanted to make a note of that. In terms of the report itself, it's self-explanatory, but I just want to make a couple of comments just around the cleansing. I saw a tweet and a Facebook post earlier today from on the council website. A member of staff had put on that they'd seen some of our cleansing staff out in the pouring rain, freezing cold weather, out there doing their jobs. And what struck me is that I've been out with them on a similar day to that, and what I want to say is that they've been doing that throughout, as far as I know, throughout, but particularly throughout this pandemic. And they deserve all the workers, the staff that we've got, deserve a special mention just for the commitment with which they go out and do their jobs. The other thing I want to just mention is a special mention for one of our officers, Tom Omerod, with relation to obviously the way that we're performing in terms of the tonnage and recycling that we're producing here in Burnley. In comparison to other Lancashire districts, we're coming out very positively against their figures, and we've had a report that's been released that shows that, and I've asked officers if they can share that with all elected members, so you're all aware of the how well we are doing as a district council. And then obviously as part of the report you can also see the information that's on there in terms of the action that we're taking, because the public have told us that they want us to take action against those who are fly tipping and not presenting their rubbish as they should be. So we're really clamping down and taking action. So enforcement is something that we're really pushing with that. The other thing I just wanted to mention, finally, won't be too long, was we had a speaker on this early at the start of the meeting who mentioned that obviously a piece of land over in Padiham, and that she'd spoken to officers and to councillors. I just wanted to clarify that the speaker is actually, Claire Hales, has actually emailed me straight after the meeting to point out that she hasn't actually contacted any of the ward councillors and hasn't contacted any officers. So I just want to reassure the public that actually, now that we're aware of it, officers and the ward councillors will deal with that situation as well, and we'll get that dealt with and looked into. So I thought it's important that we make a mention of that because it falls under my portfolio. And then finally, I just want to finish by saying that it appears that my predecessor, it's the Cosimo Townley Appreciation Society here, because while they were talking about all the wonderful things she did around the testing, I was her assistant and sidekick. And I thank Councillor Pate for mentioning me, even though she did call me cheap. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Anwar. You've got one question and a couple of observations. So the question is from Councillor Lishman.
Yes, thank you. Will the executive member congratulate Lancashire Police on their new neighbourhood alert system, and indeed encourage the council to use their media to promote it? I can see immediately the effect that these regular reports are having on people's confidence in the police, And in a very short space of time, it is significantly changing their perception of police activity and police work. It will, I think, lead to a significant increase in the number of matters that are drawn to their attention. But again, seeing that happens and seeing there is a response will have a significant effect on people's support for the police. And I think it is worth, as part of his portfolio, giving them our congratulations and supporting that work.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I remind council members to please quote the page numbers and item numbers, please. Councillor Anwar, that's the only question I have for you.
I fully agree with what Councillor Lishman has just said there with regards to the system that the police are using. I've signed up to it myself and get all the alerts, and when there's something particularly that relates to my ward, I will share that. And if there's something that I pick up and I need to share via social media, but Councillor Lishman makes a very valid point. I think as partners, we need to be pushing the work of the system that they are using, so more and more of our residents actually start using that, and it builds confidence. The other thing that I would just like to say is that I think the approach of the police goes hand in hand with the arrival of the new inspector as well. So, and the approach that he's taking in terms of engaging with our communities. So I think, we, as well as thanking the police, we need to thank Inspector Damien Pemberton as well at the same time. And I'm sure all council elected members will join me in doing that.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got 3 observations. I'm going to take all the observations. We have observation we've got observation by Andrew. Councillor Newhouse first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's PL1 and it's page 197, and it's about the enforcement work. I've had contact with a concerned member of the public regarding Kingdom services. As members are aware, Kingdom provide us with enforcement services for littering, dog fouling, etc. Members will also remember that around the time of us looking and then hiring Kingdom, a documentary was shown on TV showing some alleged very bad business practices, to say the least. We had a briefing to air our concerns, and we were told that these were old issues that had been resolved, or words to that effect, and we were satisfied that this was the case. If the reports I have received do bring to light issues that relate to some of the instances in the documentary, and from what I've seen and what I've been told, they are very similar, then we need to be looking very closely at this. We must, of course, investigate issues fairly and responsibly, but we must also show and inform the public that we do look at these issues and do make sure companies that work for the council are doing the best for our residents. I think we need to look at them again at scrutiny. We must also relook at the statistics. The issues we involved Kingdom for in the first place are still long-standing issues that, if anything, look to be getting worse. Dog fouling is still a big problem in my ward. You just have to look at the local social media sites and see that the issues are probably just as big, if not bigger. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I've got one final observation, last observation by Councillor Peter McKine. Councillor McKine?
You've just muted yourself again, Councillor. Mute.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's unusual for me to speak, but it's on page 198, community safety.
Thank you.
And it should say that I welcome that part of the Safer Streets grant is coming to the grid in Burnley Wood. And that it's not before time. Burnley Wood is becoming a target for crime, drug-related issues, housebreakings, and the list goes on. So the security measures that the grant will provide, such as alley-gates, backyards, gate security, motion sensors, lights and other things, are all be very welcome in helping to reduce the impact of this crime. And hopefully help the residents feel safe in their homes and surrounding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On to you now.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
So that's it. That's the end of observations for you,
Mr.
Councillor.
Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's
I
that?
did put up on screen, Mr. Mayor. I don't know why you're not seeing what I'm saying. Trying to get through to you, but you're obviously not.
No problem. Go fire away, Councillor Hoskell. Go for it.
Right, Councillor Anwar. I would just like to say, first of all, a credit to the street scene.
Page?
Oh, sorry. I've just put some eye drops in, so you have to bear with me on this one.
No, I'll let you off. I'll let you off.
It's PL1 something over. I think it's 197.
Thank you. Thank you.
But what I'm saying is, it's just a really, Mr. Mayor, it's really to me, Councillor Anwar. I've worked with street scene for the last month, and I'd like to say what a credit they are to the council. Tom Mormon in particular. What I will say is some of these issues, these fire tipping issues, when they do get penalised with courts, I think they're going a bit easy on them. And I'm an opinion, my own opinion is, when they go in front at magistrates or whatever the court they go in front of, maybe we should give them a fine or a sentence what fits the crime, because half of this is, you know, it's also what they tip it up. The other thing I would mention is just in Haptonley Park, we have issues with dog fouling. And I've had a few complaints over the last fortnight. If we could have that addressed and looked into,
Okay,
it'd be appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, if you can be as concise as possible in your responses, because we've got another report to go.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll be as concise and as quick as I can. With regards to Councillor Newhouse, with the issues or the reports that he's had, if he wants to get in touch and share that with us, with myself or with one of the officers, we'll ensure that is looked into. With regards to what Councillor McCann was saying about the safer streets and the funding that's coming towards parts of Bank Hall and Burnley Wood, absolutely, totally agree that we welcome that. But one of the things that we want to be, what we want to ensure is sustainability, but also to remind all elected members that actually, even though this funding will be targeted at Bank Hall and at Burnley Wood, we want to ensure that we have sustainability and that we don't take our eye off the ball in other areas. So it will be a borough-wide initiative when we look at it as a wider picture. And then in terms of what Councillor Hosker's just said, I think I've got nothing else to add to that. Our street scene team, working with them closely, working with the officers, they are a credit to us. So absolutely, totally agree. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your concise answers. Appreciate that. Executive member, let's move on to the executive member for economy and growth. Councillor Asif Raja, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will move my report. In doing so, I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Briggs for his role in lobbying the government for the reductions to the PWLB rate. As a result, for all those who push for this, the government reduced the rate by 1%, which will result in the Pioneer Place scheme costing less to the council in the long run. Also, I'd like to welcome Mr. Neil Hart as the new chair of Burnley Bondholders. I wish Mr. Hart all the best and success in his new role. I move my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We have one question so far. Am I right, Chris, by Councillor Hussain?
Councillor Hussain, Chair, yes.
Councillor Hussain, very quick question, I believe.
Mr. Mayor, page 202 and PR3, Burnley Town Centre.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to ask if the portfolio member for regeneration, Councillor Raja, do you shop in Burnley?
That's a question. That's a question, yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Of course I shop in Burnley. I mean, I wouldn't shop anywhere else, to be honest. And I fully support our local businesses. And I will spend my money in Burnley and nowhere else.
Okay, any other questions? Any observations?
There is an observation, Chair, from Councillor Gordon Birtwistle.
We've got Councillor Hostel coming in there.
I admire Councillor extension humour. When I said earlier on, I did my shopping in Accrington, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I do it occasionally when I go down Accrington, just same as if I'm on council duties in Burnley Council, and I'll do my shopping there. And if I'm in Preston at County Hall, if you're fortunate enough to get elected as a county councillor, I tend to go to Preston shopping. Now, his remarks.
Mr. Mayor, what's this got to do with it?
I think he's making a point of personal explanation.
I'm just making a point, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect to yourself, it courtesy back.
Cut him off.
Just to stop the Joe Public being misled. That's all.
Okay, point noted. Okay, let's look at observations. Can we just look through the observations, please? We've got Councillor observations. We're coming toward the end of the meeting. Well done, everybody. Councillor Shah Hussain, your observation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that all of us support local businesses and in particular go into Burnley and make every effort to shop in Burnley and support the local economy there. I understand it's easier to, if we're working in outer places, it's easier to shop there. But I think I can't stress enough the fact that we need to support local businesses and we need to support the shops within Burnley, because they support Burnley jobs, and it's extremely important. I find it extraordinary that the leader of the Tory party says that he supports somewhere else, and I find that extraordinary when as leaders we should be promoting Burnley and shopping in Burnley. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any more observations, Chris?
And
There is, Mr. Mayor. It's Councillor Birtwistle.
Yes, Councillor Birtwistle, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 201, PR2. I'm wondering if the executive member agrees with me that probably Burnley is probably one of the most vibrant manufacturing towns in the country, and we rely heavily on manufacturing industry. Manufacturing hasn't done too bad over the pandemic. It's in most cases it's managed to keep going. The aerospace industry has been quiet, but it has managed to keep going, as it might well be on a smaller scale. Basically, I just want to know that whether the executive member is in touch with the manufacturing sector and its supply chain, because once the pandemic is over with, we then have the nightmare of Brexit. And if we leave the European Union with no agreement at all, working on WTO rules, or as our Prime Minister says, Australian rules, which are exactly the same, is he aware, or would he agree with me, that it could put a lot of pressure onto our manufacturing companies, which has already been shown with Rolls-Royce at Barnoldswick, where lots of highly skilled engineers who lived in Burnley worked, and has now decided to ship all its production to Singapore. So my comment basically is, we are in a situation here at the moment where we're getting through the pandemic, slowly, but we have another major problem coming up right behind it with Brexit. And I wouldn't like to see our aerospace industry, our manufacturing industry that's related to the automotive industry, which is a lot in Burnley, some major companies in Burnley related to the automotive industry with Jaguar Land Rover, with other manufacturing companies. I would like the executive member to agree with me that he will keep in contact with all these companies and ensure that the manufacturing sector in Burnley is well covered by the council.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Birtwistle. I'll let you have that one. That was a couple of questions there, but it's okay, it's fine. Last observation, Councillor Anne Kelly, last observation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether members have seen, but we've been talking about supporting businesses in Burnley, and a group have set up Burnley's virtual Christmas market for this year. It has 2,500 members, and it has over 100 different small businesses who are selling on there and making people aware of what they do. A lot of them are things that people are making at home, but there are a lot of the smaller shops on, the market stalls are on it, and it's a really good advert for small businesses in Burnley. So it has 2,500 members already, and it's Burnley Virtual Christmas Market. So if people are interested, they can log on and have a look at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can you please reply to the observations? That's the end of observations. Can you be as concise as possible, Councillor Roger?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Just on Councillor Birtwistle, the point that you raised at the beginning, am I in touch with the local business at the minute? Unfortunately, not at this minute. I'm not in touch, but I'm in regular touch with the council officers, who are in regular contact with all the local businesses. And in regards to Brexit, I believe that the council is working with the the LEP and the Chamber of Commerce to plan a way forward for all these local businesses that you mentioned. So absolutely, come New Year, come Brexit, I'll be fully involved with the officers to pave a way forward for our local manufacturing businesses. Just moving on to Councillor Lishman, absolutely, totally acknowledge the fact that there is something out there for local businesses, a new platform that's been created. I believe it's been created by, you know, some independent person. You know, it's a great platform, great for local businesses and great for local businesses to promote their products. So, you know, thank you for making us aware of that. And I will hopefully on other platforms, I'll obviously get people to join that group and obviously check what they need to see. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome for being concise. We'll just bang on target to finish before the 10:30 deadline. Can I just move on to the item 10 questions, understanding order number 10, part 2. Mick, are you still here, Mick?
Yeah, definitely. None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you, mate. No, well, appreciate none have been received on this occasion. That moves us to the last bit, which is basically just saying thank you. That concludes the business for tonight. If MJ can terminate the YouTube.